We are all here to just itself. I would like you to or rather allow I am going to talk to all of you publicly. We are all here to
Welcome to day one of the debate on the Appropriations Bill. The bill is being laid by the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and the Public Service, Mr. Alan Chasney. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to raise the amount of $215 million for financing the 2019-2020 budget through the issuance of bonds on the regional government securities market or through private placements at a maximum rate of 7.25%. B, the amount of EC $380 million for refinancing the existing debt through the issuance of bonds on the regional government securities market or through private placements at a maximum rate of 6%. Once the bill is approved by Parliament, this will authorize the expenditure of government funds. Prime Minister Alan Chasney, during his budget address on Monday before tackling what is on stream for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, highlighted a number of achievements for the government of St. Lucia thus far. According to the Prime Minister, the economy continues to grow and has grown by 8% since assuming office. Debt to GDP is on the decline. Although it is still a bit above the prudential benchmark, the debt to GDP ratio has fallen from 67.7% in 2015 to 64.9% in 2018. Stayover visitors have increased from 344,000 in 2015 to 394,000 in 2018. It is also worth noting that 2018 saw record-breaking figures in tourist arrivals. Cruise visitors continue to break records and has increased from 677,000 in 2015 to 760,000 in 2018. Investors' interest in financing tourism development in St. Lucia continues to grow as well. There is a primary surplus, the fiscal deficit is within manageable limits, and unemployment has fallen from 24.1% in 2015 to 20.2% in 2018. Now moving on to the government's plans, the government has been engaged in restructuring the economy, putting St. Lucia on a path to grow, and has developed a medium-term development plan for the period 2019 to 2022. This plan identifies 6 key areas to achieve sustainable and inclusive growth by 2022. The 6 key areas include education, citizen safety, tourism, agriculture, infrastructure, and healthcare. The goals of the 6 key areas are as follows. Under education, the government will be facilitating the enrollment of 7,500 students in public post-secondary or tertiary education and TVET programs. Now we see the Miss is arriving and we are about to start the proceedings for today. The Speaker of the House has entered.
and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom and understanding. We thy unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace and tranquility of St. Lucia, the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards the other. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Ghost, be with us all forevermore. Amen. Honorable members, please be reminded that the question before the House is that the Appropriation 2019-2020 bill be read a second time. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, you'll excuse me, I don't have the benefit of a teleprompter, so I have to read it. I apologize. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's budget address is usually a very exciting time for all sectors of the St. Lucian economic landscape. The business sector are anxious to know what plans are there for economic expansion to find out whether the bottom line will improve. The young people look to the changes that will meaningfully impact their lives, and everyone with bated breath await the tax measures that may be in the budget document. Mr. Speaker, this was not the case this year. The public expected the budget to contain the same rehashed promises of hotel construction, transformation of the South to the Pearl of the Caribbean, a new debt-laden airport, and the usual attacks on the opposition. There are others who thought and believed that if any benefits would accrue, they would be to the usual friends, family, and foreigners. There are others who are fed up with the governance of the country. As they see a government where scandals abound, they await the next cover-up, the next round of spin, only to protect a well-connected friend. Mr. Speaker, the people of St. Lucia have been searching everywhere to find the benefits and promises they voted for in 2016. That hope, that dream, that desire for a more secure future has been dampened by pettiness, vindictiveness, and failed leadership. The glitter of ballroom events numerous empty premises, portrayed at sword-turning ceremonies, the parading of pictures and computerized renderings has done nothing to curb the rising crime rates or the increased cost of groceries at the supermarkets or the rising fuel prices. Mr. Speaker, the hopes and dreams and aspirations of the young people of St. Lucia cannot be fulfilled by this government. And it is time that the government faces the reality that they cannot deliver what the people expect from them. Every interest group is dissatisfied. The police still await the disappearance of impacts. Our nurses are uncertain of their future. Our public servants and teachers await the completion of salary and wage negotiations. The workers of the country are finding it more difficult to secure a decent quality of life. The feeling of hopelessness, fear, and insecurity abounds. Mr. Speaker, this budget does not address the voices of genuine concern being expressed by the majority of St. Lucians. The Prime Minister is living in a world of alternate reality. The St. Lucia he speaks of is not the real St. Lucia. The real St. Lucia is where healthcare is getting worse, cost of living is increasing, and the people have no confidence that the government is transparent in its dealings and will be fair and equitable. It is a St. Lucia where the people will promise a reduction in VAT with a view to its elimination. However, they have only seen VAT reduced by 2.5% and fuel taxes increase by 60%. The fisher folk of St. Lucia know the effect of the 150 increase in taxation. Now, they face an uncertain future with the closure of the Fish and Marketing Corporation. A St. Lucia Labour Party government will reduce the impact of the burdensome fuel tax on the fisher folk of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, this budget presentation of the Prime Minister was simply a repetition of the same old things. It contained the same promises of hotels, DSH, port development, and changes in the financial architecture. Mr. Speaker, none of that has happened. The Prime Minister and his government are single-minded in their desire to discredit the former government of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Even when the facts are obvious, the Prime Minister spins. A review of the economy commissioned by the UWP states that there was improvement in fiscal performance over the years 2012-2016. The Prime Minister refuses to accept. Instead, he prefers to commit what an economist would call economic treason by adding growth figures, and he speaks about cumulative growth. Mr. Speaker, economic growth is never measured by adding figures for the year. Economic growth is measured on an average basis and for a fixed period of time. It is never added. But the Prime Minister, in his quest to show that St. Lucia's economic growth is improving, he commits what I will call again economic treason by adding economic growth figures and saying that is what the economy has expanded or improved by. The Prime Minister insists in undermining and marginalizing the economic management of the St. Lucia Labour Party. I ask, what new economic measures has his government implemented? How many taxes have they reversed? Did he not find enough fiscal space to borrow millions of dollars and a debt to GDP ratio reduced by rebasing by over 12%? Did he have to lay off public servants except when political cleansing was being practiced? Did he not find the near completion of one of the largest hotels built in St. Lucia? Did he not find a regional economy that was improving and hence made it easier for him to borrow long-term on the RSM? Did he not find improved investor confidence worldwide? Did he not find a CIP program that injected over 66 million in the economy and would have performed better if he had not tampered with it? Did the Prime Minister ever consider that the unemployment figures or the employment figures can be related to the migration of many St. Lucians to neighboring islands that are rebuilding after the natural problems and disasters? Did he not find large projects ready to start, but political pettiness caused these projects to be abandoned? Did he not find a CDB financed and approved project that would reduce our carbon imprint by replacing all street lights with energy-saving lights and devices? Did he not find reduction in the unsustainable deficits in the fiscal accounts to surpluses in certain cases? Mr. Speaker, this is only a small part of the platform that his government inherited and failed to build on. Mr. Speaker, we await the 6 hotels promising every budget delivered by the Prime Minister. It's his habit of promising many hotels. At some earlier times, the Prime Minister promised 6 hotels in Miku. In the 3 years, there has not been one new hotel constructed. However, the Prime Minister wants us to believe that 6 hotels will commence in 1 year. Mr. Speaker, we were promised 500 to 800 jobs on the Deershade sites and a promise to transform the south of the island. It was said that the project would attract 400 horses. And I quote, the high rates of joblessness in Vieux-Fort would be no longer. Mr. Speaker, what has the DSH project delivered to the people of the South, except the partitioning of a substantial part of their land that, according to a framework agreement, measures over 1,000 acres? Mr. Speaker, every year we have fiscal responsibility legislation that will ensure accountability. However, the government continues to award contracts of millions of dollars by direct awards, while a procurement bill already passed in Parliament remains not assented to by the Governor General. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says that the financial rules, the new rules proposed, will control debt accumulation by his government. However, he refuses to act when ministers of his cabinet issue to whom it may concern letters seeking finance that will increase debts. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister plans to merge the National Lottery with the Gaming Authority. I believe that is to allow his adventure into horse race gambling. Who will regulate the business of gambling in St. Lucia if operators are also regulators? Mr. Speaker, all economic policy must be practiced in an atmosphere that fosters good governance, fairness, and equity for all. The people must believe that the system is managed properly and there are adequate checks and balances that will ensure proper ethical practices. Mr. Speaker, the antidote for corruption is good governance. Conversely, when there's an absence of good governance, corruption is alive and well. Good governance must transcend partisan politics. Good governance is about securing public safety, good public education, affordable health care, and responsible debt management. Good governance is also about the Prime Minister exercising leadership by disciplining his ministers when their behavior is in contravention of the ministerial code of behavior. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister continues to fail the people of St. Lucia by refusing to act when he should in the face of accusations of corruption against a sitting member of his cabinet. This cabinet minister has been publicly accused of offering bribes to a former Prime Minister and cabinet member within the years 2006 and 2011 during the United Workers' Party administration. More disturbing, the accused minister has made no effort to protect his name. Mr. Speaker, there can only be 2 interpretations to the accused minister's inaction. He either does not care about his public image, which is worrying as a public officer, or is guilty of the accusation. The significance of the accusation remains lost on the Prime Minister, so he has done nothing about it. Not even the fact that the accusation was made by a former cabinet colleague seems to move the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's indifference to matters concerning the behavior of his cabinet ministers is sending a clear signal to the population. He just does not care. And so, we have a situation where certain ministers have become emboldened and are now more and more engaged in activities that are unbecoming of any public official. Mr. Speaker, this government has wasted precious time in Parliament and beyond to blame the opposition, denials, even if obvious evidence. The Prime Minister makes excuses. They have engaged highly paid, tax-funded spin doctors to deflect blame, threaten, and intimidate perceived political opponents. There can be no meaningful economic prosperity for all in that environment. Mr. Speaker, let me say in this House and to the people of St. Lucia that the next SAP government, under my leadership, will strengthen the integrity in public office legislation. The strengthened legislation will ensure that there are sanctions against public officials involving corruption. Mr. Speaker, this process will commence while we are in opposition, so the people of St. Lucia will see the determination of my party to stamp out corruption in government. Mr. Speaker, allow me to crave your indulgence for a moment in an effort to test how a blameless person would respond to allegations of wrongdoing. If your signature, Mr. Speaker, was attached to a letter you did not sign, and you were then asked about the letter, would you defend its contents? I think not. And you would dismiss the letter as a forgery and perhaps call the police in an attempt to protect your reputation and good name. Mr. Speaker, there is a letter in public circulation which bears the signature of a government minister, in which the government of St. Lucia has agreed to enter into a contractual agreement with Pajoa Limited Associates, and has also agreed to honor debts of EC $162 million for projects undertaken by Pajoa Limited and Associates. Mr. Speaker, it would be irresponsible and reckless of any minister, including the Prime Minister, to commit to anyone the payment of a loan by the government of St. Lucia, which has not been tabled in this House for debate, let alone agreed. Yet, the minister in question has chosen to defend the contents of the letter. The minister has chosen to defend the contents of the letter and has accepted the signature on the letter as being his. He has not suggested forgery, and nor has he been clear that the letter was not written by him. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is aware of the letter and has remained mute about it. By his silence, he is demonstrating an indifference, at the very least, to any likely wrongdoing on the part of his ministers. There is a notable awareness of the seriousness of the matter, though within his own government, by the last United Workers' Party Prime Minister and member of Cashews North. In his answer to questions from the press about the said letter, which was written on the official letterhead from the Ministry of Economic Development, he agreed that the letter, if authentic, then the minister should be disciplined because he would have been in breach of the ministerial code of conduct. Mr. Speaker, I'm calling on the Prime Minister, given the defense of the letter's contents by the minister in question and the recognition by a senior member in his cabinet of the seriousness and damaging nature of the letter, that he tells the House and the people of St. Lucia what he intends to do about the situation. In the spirit of transparency and good governance, that if he, the Prime Minister, intends to commence an investigation into the matter, that the police be included to address any likelihood of forgery of the signature of an important government minister. Mr. Speaker, the tourism industry remains the main economic driver for the country. Our economic success in tourism, though, depends significantly on external factors beyond our control. Example, the state of the economies of our source markets. Mr. Speaker, we note the increase in tourism arrivals and the Prime Minister's claim that is a result of his government's policies. But what has been the government's policy? The dissolution of the St. Lucia Tourist Board, a proposed village tourism initiative, and formation of a TAC, Tourism Advisory Council. None of these initiatives are new. A TAC was appointed before, and I think some members in this Honorable House were members of that TAC. The Tourism Authority has done nothing significantly to change tourism administration, except for the dismissal of employees and officials perceived to be of a different political persuasion. That is all the Tourism Advisory Council, the Tourism Authority has done. Just because people who the government believes were not part of who did not support them, caused them to lose their jobs. Mr. Speaker, the increase in tourism arrivals is due to the improvement of the economies in our source markets, the USA in particular, and the opening of the Royalton Hotel with its own marketing arrangements and its own airline services. Mr. Speaker, the Royalton Hotel increased the room stock by over 400 rooms and the Harbour Club by over 100 rooms. Mr. Speaker, the Royalton Hotel alone accounts for an increase of about 28,072 arrivals. If the Royalton had not opened, growth would only be 2.5% for that year. The 28,000 additional arrivals is a direct result of the additional rooms. If we look at the reduction of figures between 2015 and 2016, you will see that when we lost the Club St. Lucia room stock, arrivals decreased immediately. Mr. Speaker, but I want to warn you and take you to the most recent figures whilst the government boasts for the months of February 2019, where arrivals decreased from all major source markets except the United Kingdom. All major source markets, including the United States market, there was a reduction in arrivals in the month of February. And the increase in UK arrivals was only because of cricket being played at the Darren Sammy Stadium. If not, there would have been reductions in all major source markets in February 2019. A worrisome sign, very worrying sign that the government must look into. The St. Lucia Labour Party is concerned with the distribution of the benefits from these tourism numbers. Are the vendors and taxi drivers enjoying increased benefits? Are the arrival numbers reflected in the small hotel sector? The government failed to continue development of the Nature Heritage Tourism Program, but instead chose what they call village tourism, which after 3 years is still at the level of consultancy and proposed legislation. After 3 years, village tourism is still at the level of consultancy and proposed legislation. Mr. Speaker, another example of wasted opportunity. Mr. Speaker, let me briefly make the party's position on Hiwanora International Airport very, very clear. We support the improvement of the airport because it's necessary to meet the demands and standards of a growing destination. Our disagreement with the government is with the financing arrangements for the improvements. We believe that a US $175 million loan is an unnecessary burden on the people of St. Lucia when a debt-free alternative was available. Having cancelled the debt-free alternative, this government has still not been able to finalize the total US $175 million loan. Given St. Lucia's limited fiscal space, it is highly irresponsible to take on debts when it can be avoided and make it more difficult and expensive to secure funding for vital sectors like health and education. Mr. Speaker, if we were to listen to the Prime Minister, you will believe that building an airport was easy, very easy. If it was so, Mr. Speaker, why then are there over 600 airports that are constructed and managed by PPP arrangements? And while, Mr. Speaker, as we speak, hundreds of airports are being constructed using the PPP model. The government of Jamaica has announced the expansion of the Norman Mann International Airport using a PPP model. The Barbados government is seeking a PPP arrangement for its airports, but St. Lucia has chosen the debt option because our Prime Minister can see opportunities when no one else can. It is not that simple, Mr. Speaker, and the Prime Minister must cease from making simplistic arithmetical calculations to explain complex financial transactions. Airport construction is not that simple. To hear the Prime Minister justify imposing a tax burden on the future generation by simply multiplying arrivals by an airport tax is unrealistic and flies in the face of logic. If it was so easy, everybody would just impose an airport tax, arrivals would increase, they would multiply arrivals by the tax and build an airport. And pay it back in 5 years, according to the Prime Minister, and have money for investment. Mr. Speaker, you think if this was so easy to happen, everybody would do it? Why would St. Vincent take years to build an airport? Why would Antigua seek help from the Chinese to build an airport? Why would the Bahamas have a PPP arrangement? Why would Barbados not just increase the airport tax and get money and build the airport? That is the simplicity that the Prime Minister wants to make people understand, that a complex thing like airport development happens. Just put a tax, increase visitors, multiply 45 US by 200,000 and bam, airport. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister must take the business of this country much more seriously. He must. Mr. Speaker, recent political and economic history will show that most Caribbean islands have had to undergo IMF structural adjustment programs or homegrown austerity measures to stabilize their economies to avert economic ruin. These austerity measures have always reduced social, health, and education expenses, causing hardship to large sections of the population, particularly the youth and the lower income groups. In each individual case, the constant factor has been unsustainable high public debt. In St. Lucia, our public debt is over $3 billion, and according to the IMF report of 2018, it is projected to reach 81.3% of GDP by the year 2023. The IMF declared that a fiscal adjustment of 2.7% of GDP was needed to attain the ECCU debt target of 60% of GDP by 2030. The IMF advised, among other measures, the use of CIP revenue for building, and I quote, a savings fund for natural disasters of 5% of GDP by the year 2021. We have heard nothing from the Prime Minister of how he intends to bridge that 2.7% gap needed in the GDP as advised by the IMF. Mr. Speaker, any responsible Minister of Finance would, instead of seeking ways of discrediting this message would look at the examples of other countries in the region and take measures to limit and avoid unnecessary borrowing. The UWP government will have, by the end of this financial year, borrowed or refinanced nearly $1 billion worth of loans since assuming power in 2016. Mr. Speaker, at the end of 2018, the official stock of public debt increased by 4.1% to $3.306 billion. This year, it is estimated that the public debt will increase by over $300 million without inclusion of the SLASPA guaranteed debt, over $270 million, expected to increase to over $400 million. Furthermore, the estimates do not reflect the $275 million worth of borrowing approved by the St. Lucia Parliament during the last fiscal year. Only $197 million is reflected in the estimates. Mr. Speaker, if current trends continue, we may see the national debt, including guaranteed debt, reaching nearly $4 billion by the end of the fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, the Barbados economy, which was once hailed as the best managed economy in the region, is, as we speak, under painful restructuring as a result of a severe IMF program, partly because of high public debt. The Barbados population only yesterday experienced increases in bus fares, increased taxes on fuel, thousands of job losses in the public and civil service. Mr. Speaker, if it could happen to Barbados, an economy that we boasted about as being one of the best managed economies of the region, if it could happen to Barbados, Mr. Speaker, and this government continues, when they are told about increased debt, to behave as if the people who are saying it are bearers of bad news and enemies of the people, instead of the government considering that debt is something that you must pursue cautiously, that debt is a burden on our children and on our children's children, that debt must be avoided by whatever means necessary, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the St. Lucia Labour Party would not want our country to have to undergo painful restructuring because of reckless election borrowing from a government that has not implemented one viable economic project since it won the elections in 2016. Not one new and viable economic project from 2016. Mr. Speaker, excessive debt is not only our responsibility, but a burden for our children and generations yet to be born. It is our duty to be responsible. St. Lucia is in danger of experiencing the same kind of debt crisis which has derailed the growth and development of other Caribbean islands, with disastrous consequences for the quality of life of the people. This crisis has to be averted, and the government and the St. Lucia Labour Party, when in government, will design a creative, transparent set of private-public sector partnerships, the avoidance of fiscal excesses, wastage and corruption, and an imaginative growth program that will improve the fiscal position of our country. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did not elaborate on the fiscal measures relating to the taxes on the tourism sector. Our party calls for some consultation, and that consideration be given to the small hotel sector when the final computations are made. The measures must not be unduly beneficial to large properties that have the benefits of sophisticated accounting procedures. Mr. Speaker, the reintroduction of the property tax must take into consideration the hundreds of house owners who do not have the disposable income available to incur any more taxes. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has announced that a loan from the government of Taiwan will be used to repair roads. As in the case with the government, the impression was given by the Prime Minister that all roads will be fixed. Incidentally, that was the same promise made in last year's budget. What was shocking, Mr. Speaker, is the announcement of a trip to Kuwait for negotiation for repair and construction of the Castries-Grosley Highway and the repair of surrounding secondary roads. Mr. Speaker, you cannot find a more glaring example of how the Prime Minister has wasted opportunity in his blind desire to completely erase the legacy of the St. Lucia Labour Party. What opportunities have the people of St. Lucia lost by the stopping of the Grosley Highway expansion? The project, Mr. Speaker, would be co-financed through approved loans from the Kuwaiti Fund for Arab Economic Development and the OPEC Fund for International Development, OFID, and would have been implemented by the Ministry of Infrastructure. The project included improvement of existing 90 kilometers of secondary roads, widening of the existing 2-lane road to a 4-lane dual carriageway, upgrading of 7 junctions, pavement strengthening, construction of 9 overhead footbridges, upgrading of draining infrastructure and ancillary structures. Mr. Speaker, in June 2016, the tendered engineering drawings for the secondary roads were being evaluated. The congestion in June 2016, when this government came into power, the engineering works for the secondary roads were being evaluated by public tender in June 2016. The congestion and loss of productive time on that roadway is a direct result of the failure of the Prime Minister to continue the project. And, Mr. Speaker, if you are so minded, I could make it a document of the House. The Shock Bay, Grosley Road, and secondary roads improvement projects from the Kuwaiti Fund. I can make it a document of the House if you are so minded, where all the components and all the other aspects of the roads is outlined in that document. Mr. Speaker, we look forward to what procurement policies that will be used to choose the contractors for the proposed roadworks. Why has there not been a public tender for the construction of these roads? What will be the involvement of the Ministry of Economic Development in the process? Mr. Speaker, if you look on the government's website, that nowhere in that website is there any suggestion of tendering for any project. And this Prime Minister has spoken about these roads, these Taiwanese roads for many years, and he has not seen it necessary to at least put in public tender the roads that he intends to improve or the roads that he intends to expand. We are with Mr. Speaker, because the Prime Minister must understand that the money being borrowed does not belong to him. This money being borrowed is going to be repaid by the people of St. Lucia, not the Prime Minister. The people of St. Lucia, the young people of St. Lucia, are the ones who are going to be called to pay back on these loans. So the Prime Minister cannot behave as if this is his business. This is not his business. This is the government of St. Lucia, and this is not private business. So he can't expect to just make announcements and believe because he says it, people must listen to it. I call on the Prime Minister to tell us what procurement policies will be put in place for the construction of these roads that are going to be built with the QAT funds? How will the contractors be chosen? How will the truckers, how will they be chosen? Mr. Speaker, if we have to look at examples of recent road contracts, this is not very encouraging. The government built roads in Miku, direct award. The government is building a road in Viewfort, a road they say is for the airport, direct awards. The government is building, the government has built walls with special financing, direct awards. Now, the government is about to enter into a loan agreement of over $135 million, and the Prime Minister says that these roads, construction is going to begin in these roads this year, and there has not been one public tender for any of these roads. The government must ensure that the public receives value for money when their funds are being used. Mr. Speaker, if there was ever an example of neglect and carelessness, is in the government's handling of the health sector. The people of St. Lucia have suffered from inadequate health care. Our health practitioners continue to work in less than adequate conditions. The government continues to play politics with the health of the nation. Mr. Speaker, it took the government 3 years to form what the Prime Minister says in his budget is, and I quote, a National Health Insurance Committee to present the best model and financial options to Cabinet, unquote. And 2, to embark upon broad-based consultations with stakeholders. It took the government 3 years to decide that they will form a National Health Committee that will have discussions with stakeholders. 3 years. And when this government came into power, they found in the Ministry of Health broad-based discussions on financing of the health sector. These discussions were put together in a document that is available in the Ministry of Health that gives several options for health financing. The government, again, in its quest to derail the legacy of the St. Lucia Labour Party, cast it aside. And now 3 years later, they are forming a health insurance committee to present the best model and financial options to Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, that is as far as we are in national health insurance. A committee and broad-based consultations after 3 years. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister states, and I quote, that it is easy, and he says so very glibly, it's easy to focus on the OKU and St. Jude Hospital. It's not easy, Mr. Prime Minister. It's painful. It's not easy. It's painful. Because the people of the South are seeing their loved ones suffer and some of them die at the George Odlum Stadium. It would be easy if all of us could afford to get on a helicopter when we are sick and fly away. It would be very easy. But it's not so easy for the majority of people in St. Lucia. It is not so easy. So to say that it's easy to focus on the OKU hospital is another sign of callousness. Mr. Speaker, the government remained deaf. They refused to listen while the people of the South cried for health care. According to the estimates presented, the government intends to spend $25 million on the St. Jude Hospital reconstruction project in the next financial year, according to the estimates presented. However, the Prime Minister states that $40 million will be spent, but the estimates, which he passed in the House the week before, says $25 million is going to be spent. And Mr. Speaker, there are several instances where there is a mismatch between the estimates and what the Prime Minister says. The Prime Minister says a figure, and the estimates show a completely different figure. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister in his own words stated that $10 million US was available for use from the Taiwanese loan for use at St. Jude Hospital. However, he stopped work, even if that $10 million was available, allowing the buildings to get worse, only to admit that the hospital could have been completed much earlier. Mr. Speaker, we begged the government, we demonstrated, we pleaded with the government, we said to the government, do whatever you want. Have all your inquiries, have all your investigations, do what you have to do, play all your politics, but for the sake of the people of St. Lucia, continue work on the St. Jude Hospital. Please, we beg the government, not for ourselves, we beg the government for the people of the South. The government stayed back in their arrogance, casting blame, casting aspersions, threatening, allow the hospital to remain. And now, 46 months later, with an election year, all hell has broken loose. Tractors are moving, etc., etc. And the Prime Minister says that he's going to build a 90-room hospital with $30 million, but the estimate shows $25 million. Mr. Speaker, why did it take the government 36 months to take a decision regarding the health care and welfare of the patients and staff of the St. Jude Hospital? We told the government to do whatever they had to do, but complete the hospital for the people of the South. Mr. Speaker, we have for over 3 years urged the government to continue work even while they performed their political maneuverings. We asked them to continue work, Mr. Speaker. The people in the South demonstrated, but the government was not caring. Now the government is hastily conniving to appear as if something is happening again. The question must be asked, and again we ask, who are the contractors who will work on the St. Jude Hospital reconstruction site? Who are the contractors? Was the award of the contract given by public tender or by direct award? What contractors are involved in the earth moving that is taking place? How were these contractors chosen, and how will the set of contractors who are going to be building the so-called St. Jude reconstruction project, how will they be chosen? Will the construction...
You have 15 minutes in which to complete your presentation. Member for Den Redoff.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask for suspension of 4210 to allow the... Pardon?
Invoke 4210.
Invoke, sorry, 4210 to allow the Honorable Leader of the Opposition an additional 45 minutes within which to complete his presentation.
Honorable members, the question is that Standing Order 4210 be invoked and that the Leader of the Opposition be granted an additional 45 minutes in which to complete his presentation. I now put a question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Proceed, Honorable.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I move to the OKEU Hospital. Mr. Speaker, there was no mention in the Prime Minister's budget address of the management structure proposed for the OKEU Hospital, even after ministers of his government have openly stated that a contract may have been or will be awarded or has been signed or will be signed for the management of parts of the OKEU Hospital by private contractors. Mr. Speaker, it is total disregard for the people's health when a government can completely abandon commissioning plans prepared from 2016 and fire a committee led by a distinguished doctor who has been honored recently by the government for his distinguished services to medicine. When the government can completely abandon these plans, and what you hear, near election time, the government is promises to relocate to the wellness center. The wellness center no longer is the wellness center. It will be relocated. I think what's going to be in the wellness center, all kinds of things. All in a sudden, there's going to be wellness center will be expanded. 40 rooms will be there. A mental hospital in Microsoft, a very interesting place to put it. All these things will happen. Suddenly, a mental hospital, in the Prime Minister's budget address, he stated that a mental facility will be built in Microsoft. That's what? You want to say it in your budget? You forget what you're saying, man.
Honorable members, honorable members.
You're losing your memory. Right. Now the government, with election time close, is promising to relocate patients at the wellness center, decommissioning Victoria Hospital, move services to different locations. What confusion. Mr. Speaker, it was the same Prime Minister who said to the country that the OKE hospital would serve as a tourist health facility. It's the same Prime Minister who said that the OKE hospital would serve as a tourist health facility run by private concerns to supplement income, since the public purse could not afford the maintenance of the OKE hospital. The Prime Minister said to the public that the OKE hospital would be, part of it would be used as a tourist facility to give health care to tourists, because we should have so many tourists that we have to have health tourism at the OKU. The same Prime Minister who said so. Not one word in this budget. Not one word. Not one word. Not one word. Mr. Speaker, the government has failed the public in the provision of health care. There can be no excuse, even for a government that takes no blame. This government is blameless. This government takes responsibility for nothing. This government finds a way to either accuse somebody else or to find excuses. This government takes no responsibility. Only what this government knows is how to make excuses, how to blame the opposition, and how to find ways and means to deflect from the reality. Mr. Speaker, the St. Lucia Labour Party pledges to make affordable health care a priority so as to fulfill the United Nations Declaration that health is a human right. Mr. Speaker, in March 2018, the 45-year-old Folk Research Center burned to the ground with loss of all its invaluable documents and audio-visual materials. To date, the institution has not yet received a report from the fire service on the cause of that disastrous fire. The loss of this unique St. Lucian institution sent shock waves throughout the region. The importance of safeguarding and preserving, and most importantly, the records cannot be re-emphasized, and the fire re-emphasized that fact. An SLP government will give support to the Folk Research Center in the effort to digitalize their records. The St. Lucia Labour Party pledges to work with the Folk Research Center to help rebuild its burnt-out headquarters at Mount Pleasant. The public remains concerned about the treatment of the St. Lucia National Trust, established in 1975. Around the world, national trust organizations safeguard the built heritage and environmental areas that need protection and maintenance. The St. Lucia National Trust should be helped not hindered in its essential work. The trust will say to all governments and government agencies at times truths that they do not want to hear. But the trust must speak out on behalf of the nation when it sees that our patrimony is seriously threatened. Mr. Speaker, in an act of political retribution and political vindictiveness, the government in its first year of office cut the subvention from the St. Lucia National Trust. The St. Lucia Labour Party pledges again that on its return to office, we will immediately reinstate the subvention to the National Trust. I congratulate our new generation of creative people whose talents were on display during the celebrations of the 40th anniversary of independence. Arts and culture do provide an avenue and outlet for harnessing the energy and real talents of our young people. New areas of film with opportunities for actors, directors, designers, camera persons, sound engineers, etc. should be given serious consideration. Areas like fashion design must be encouraged. Already talented entrepreneurs are doing well with their bags, their clothing, and other accessories. The arts and craft industry must also be encouraged and provided for. We can do so much better in so many areas. These industries and cultural industries will go back on the front burner for further discussion and development when the St. Lucia Labour Party is returned to government. Mr. Speaker, I have no confidence in the budget presented by the Prime Minister. The promised change is nowhere to be found. This budget is yet another heap of empty promises. This budget is a paisi pala budget. Paisi pala. This place and that place. Same thing this year, same thing last year, same thing the year before. 6 hotels, DSH, Newport. This paisi pala budget has no focus, but only reveals the inept, empty, and incompetent nature of the government. A St. Lucia Labour Party government will offer the people of St. Lucia a new developmental focus within an enabling policy and program environment that will ensure poverty reduction for the promotion and encouragement of micro, small, and medium enterprises, while ensuring the expansion of existing enterprises. The St. Lucia Labour Party program will include 1. An integrated rural development program to help stem some of the rural-urban drift that causes the increasing unemployment, particularly among the youth. 2. A new entrepreneurial culture to enable the expansion of existing enterprises and creation of new ones. 3. A far-reaching reform of the education, training, and human development institutions in our country. 4. Improving business facilitation with the aim of making St. Lucia the best place to do business in the Caribbean. 5. The establishment of at least one new major economic sector, that is the alternative energy sector. 6. The St. Lucia Labour Party will be creative, effective in its communication, information sharing, and community engagement that allows ownership and acceptance of the policies and processes by our people. Our agenda will be a people's first agenda. Our agenda will be a people's first agenda, not an agenda for friends, family, and foreigners. The creation of a new emerging economic activity to harness the talent and entrepreneurial aspirations of the youth. The creation of the St. Lucia Labour Party is committed to pursuing a green economy as one of the pillars for inclusive economic growth, sustainable development, and prosperity for all St. Lucians. We will ensure a national understanding and commitment by sharing, explaining, and embracing ideas and strategies that would promote the green economy model. The St. Lucia Labour Party will make a concerted effort to develop an economy with special opportunities for the youth to develop and expand their entrepreneurial talents. In fact, a large part of the people modernize the future generations. Mr. Speaker, it was Dwight D. Eisenhower who said, and I quote, "As we peer into the society's future, we, you and our government, hold the impulse to live only for today of cash trees." And ask the man on the Babino bus, what did he gain from the budget pronouncements of the Prime Minister? He will tell you, nothing. I challenge you, Mr. Family or foreigner, the ordinary man, the man who has to hustle to send his children to school, the man who has to deal with the increased fuel, personally attacking their opponents by not dealing with the reality of the situation, a situation where people are getting desperate, a situation where the people are dissatisfied, a situation where there is a disconnect between the government and the people. The government will remain in their high and mighty place as kings ruling over subjects and hoping that when they say what they have to say in this chamber, when they insult people, when they are sarcastic, when they are arrogant, that will solve the problems of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, that will not solve the problems of St. Lucia. St. Lucia is in a state of crisis. St. Lucia is in a state of despair. And this budget has done nothing to create any hope, to improve the aspirations of the young, to the people of St. Lucia. I thank you.
Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment.
Here we monsieur. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin, let me say, Mr. Speaker, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure and a privilege for me once again to participate in this budget debate. A privilege that I thank the people of the Grosley constituency for. Mr. Speaker, I rise in unequivocal support of the appropriation bill for 2019-2020. Not merely verbal support, Mr. Speaker, but a pledge to part in facilitating the delivery and implementation of the plans laid out for the coming period for the betterment of our people and the development of our country. Allow me to compliment the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance for the presentation of a budget that will place St. Lucia on the right trajectory as we take off on the mission to build the St. Lucia we promised and that our people deserve. Mr. Speaker, I am charged with the responsibility of steering our social development in the right direction, preside over the weaving of an improved quality of life and better society for our people. I therefore welcome the fact that some of our indicators are pointing in the right direction and that some of the indices that speak to socio-economic improvement are showing positive signs. The fact that our economy continues to grow with a further 1.5, giving us an aggregate of some 8% growth since this administration assumed office, is encouraging. the reduction in debt to GDP from 6.7% in 2015 to 67% in 2015 to 64.9% in 2018 is also a sign that we are heading in the right direction. Rehabilitation and maintenance program, the St. Jude's Hospital, the cruise port in the south, and the several private sector initiatives. Mr. Speaker, we are set for takeoff on a road to progress. This healthier state of affairs, Mr. Speaker, will see us cruising to a brighter day of progress and development. Mr. Speaker, if I may, permit me to take a look 2020, given what has been allocated in this year's budget for that purpose. Mr. Speaker, I begin with the poverty situation in St. Lucia. In 2016, St. Lucia commenced its third consecutive country poverty assessment, which was officially published in 2018. The total poverty head count fell from 28.1% of the population in 2006 to 25.1% in 2016. And this is based on an annualized poverty line of $6,443. This decline in poverty headcount was more pronounced in the rural communities, which recorded a poverty incidence of 32.9% in 2016 relative to 41% in 2006. The indigence rate, Mr. Speaker, and we're referring to people here who make $3 or less per annum, also fell to 1.3% of the population during 2016 when compared to the 1.6% in 2006. The 2016 country poverty assessment revealed that poverty worsened with regions, namely Castries City, Beaufort District, and the Dennery region, or making better the situation that I just described. Mr. Speaker, but Soufriere Town Square, and we have an allocation of $59,439 for that purpose. The continuation of the Human Resource Development Center, we have an allocation of $456,224. And in addition, the government provided a second round of finances to the constituency councils, totaling $1.4 million for local government for community projects. Further, the ministry received a total of $403,055 to support the community after-school program, which is on its 11th consecutive year. Further increases are noted in the home care program, which received a total of $7.7 million in 2020 fiscal year, relative to the $6.49 million that we had for 2018-2019. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to social assistance services, Lucia's poor and indigent households, inclusive of individuals that are mentally challenged. Mr. Speaker, during the year in review, a total of 2,610 households received public assistance across the 17 constituencies, which is equivalent to a total of 3,524 beneficiaries. Of the total number of households in receipt of cash transfers, Castries and Beaufort account for 19.6% and 14.1% respectively. It must also be noted that a substantial number of St. Lucians are currently on the waiting list, which suggests that the budgetary allocation of $8.3 million is inadequate at meeting the overall demand for public assistance among the St. Lucian public. In addition to the cash transfer, the ministry has several other social assistance services, including medical assistance, eye care, educational assistance, the child disability grant, and the burial assistance. It is worth highlighting that the burial assistance amounts to $310,791.88, the largest subcomponent after the cash transfer. When it comes to child disability, the government of St. Lucia also provides an estimated 300 children a grant of $200 a month for the differently abled children. To access this service, children are screened by an approved pediatrician, which will determine the extent of the disability. and that child will receive assistance, and this assistance is terminated once the individual turns 21 years of age. And however, in many instances, given the severity of the disability, the child is transferred to the public assistance program after they have graduated out of the child assistance program. Mr. Speaker, I just want to touch briefly on an program that I think will make a dent and make a big difference as far as the delivery reform program. During 2018, the ministry began advancing the social safety net reform project. This reform was prompted by a 2009 social safety net assessment, which found that St. Lucia's social safety net system was highly fragmented, which created the right environment for exploitation. It also indicated inefficiency in providing assistance for social protection. In 2012, St. Lucia commenced its social safety net reform project, which included the development of a social protection policy, social protection action plan, and the drafting of a social protection bill, which should hopefully replace the... In addition, St. Lucia stands, Mr. Speaker, with the Central Beneficiary Registry. I expect to see better assistance to those who actually need it. Mr. Speaker, another very important program that provides assistance to those who are in need. Data from the Central Statistics has suggested that a number of persons, St. Lucia has also witnessed a decline in the country's average household, and as a result of this confluence of factors, there has been an increase in demand for elderly care services in St. Lucia, particularly among the poor and vulnerable population who are unable to afford care from the various private homes. There have been increased concerns about abuse of the elderly. Now, Mr. Speaker, again, I take a pause here to mention the fact that I lamented, in fact, expressed concern about the drop in our population. I think it is about time as a nation we begin to take stock of that development and take measures, put measures in place to reverse it. Here, you heard of an example of, I am suggesting that we have more children. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, here you have an example of one of the problems that has arisen in terms of contributions that will sustain their pensions. These are all concerns that we must take into consideration, and I'm hoping that very soon as a country we'll begin to address this in a very serious, structured manner. In response to this growing epidemic, and that's what I call it, Mr. Speaker, the government, through the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, in April 2017, launched the Home Care Program, which provides specialized care to the elderly and disabled persons at no cost to the client who otherwise are unable to care for themselves. Care is provided to beneficiaries from Monday to Friday from 8 to 4 p.m. During the year in review, Mr. Speaker, a total budget of 6.4. I am happy to say that those services are provided based on need, based on merit. And it has nothing to do with the whims, fancies, or desires of the minister responsible. So much so, Mr. Speaker, I am at the mercy of the SSDF who administer the project. Mr. Speaker, and I take a pause here to make a pitch for my constituency, I'm proud to say. That, again, flies in the face of the claims that are being made about victimization, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Kudme Setlisi program, this program, which is housed also at the SSDF, is geared specifically towards St. Lucians who are indigent. That is, households that are considered to be food poor. The program models after the Chilean Puente or Bridge program and is based on a multi-agency collaboration among social partners in the efforts to tackle poverty. Similar to the Puente program, it offers a range of interventions across several dimensions or pillars, which includes health, education, housing, employment, family dynamics, income, and personal identification. Yes, personal identification, Mr. Speaker, you'd be surprised to know that there are many St. Lucians who do not have an identity. They don't have an ID card, they don't have a passport, and of course you know how limiting that is when it comes to transacting or traveling or what have you. We assist in ensuring that that situation is remedied. Households are assisted for a period of 2 years, Mr. Speaker, and thereafter, those households are expected to graduate off the program and are able to overcome their poverty situation. We have, to an extent, been successful, not all the time, but by and large, that is the goal, that is the aim. Mr. Speaker, just to give you an idea, I have listed the assistance provided in terms of households. We have a total of 52 households. Kudme St. Lucie cycle, which began in December 2018 from an annual budget of $500,000. Mr. Speaker, it must be noted that in order to ensure a coordinated approach between the public assistance and the Kudme St. Lucie, the 52 clients currently on the program were selected from the current public assistance clients. And that is a program that is of equity, social justice, and empowerment. The remaining 6 pillars, housing and education components, are provided through the educational and housing assistance programs. A unique feature of the Kudme St. Lucie program is the provision of family support workers to each of the 52 households. These family support workers will ensure that over the 2-year period that the assigned families fulfill the requirements of each pillar, which is essential if they are to be lifted. Mr. Speaker, recognizing the correlation between poverty and the lack of education attainment, the Ministry has placed special emphasis on ensuring that the poor households access educational assistance. During 2018, a total of 582 households received educational assistance out of a total of 1,246 households, which means that the government of St. Lucia, due to budgetary constraints, was only able to supply 46.7% of households with educational assistance. An estimated 330 students all received school books, shoes, and uniforms during 2018. In addition, the program provided assistance to 33 students in the form of school fees for the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College and 23 for admission into the Center for Adolescence and Renewal, so Adolescent Renewal and Education, CARE. Mr. Speaker, a new program, again, that is housed at the SSDF is Our Boys Matter. In 2018, Mr. Speaker, the Social Development Fund, SSDF, with the support of 2 private sector entities, Massey Stores and Lucilec, launched a program called Our Boys Matter. The program is a pilot study that targets 100 vulnerable boys in 7 secondary schools in the northern and western zones of the island, namely the Grosley Secondary School, the Sir Ira Seaman Secondary, Entrepot Secondary, Bocage Secondary, and Cicero Secondary, and the Sir Stanley John Odlam Memorial Secondary. The program provides young men who are on the verge of dropping out of school the opportunity to continue their education in an alternative pathway that is better suited for them as opposed to the standard academic route. To this end, the Our Boys Matter program was successful in transferring 50 boys from the regular secondary schools to the Center for Adolescent Renewal and Education. The pillars of support provided by Our Boys Matter program include the following. 1, training, that's educational, housing assistance, school supplies, transportation, meal allowance, and psychosocial support in the form of mentorship, adolescent development programs, and parenting skills training to the household. Mr. Speaker, I move on to persons with disability. As a ministry, we do not overlook any sector of our society, and we try to cater for every St. Lucian who is in need. During the year 2018, the ministry, with the assistance of the Caribbean Development Bank, commenced the preparatory work to conduct a comprehensive assessment of the status of differently able persons in St. Lucia. This initiative recognizes that disability is both biological, meaning individuals having various impairments, and social in nature, which is the way society treats such persons. The ordinary differently able individual is excluded from obtaining a proper education, from accessing the job market, and many have limited access to information, as currently none of the various media houses have any sign language interpreters. More importantly, The majority of public spaces and government institutions are not configured for the differently abled, making it difficult for them to access essential services. Efforts at ensuring equity and inclusion for differently able individuals should include the following: extending the home care program to disabled individuals, increasing the introduction of assistive technology to differently able individuals, and the introduction of interpreters at the various electronic media houses so as to ensure inclusion of disabled persons. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a look at the social care services, and I begin with child protection services. In 2018, the government of St. Lucia enacted two priority pieces of legislation, as every member in this House would have been aware: the Child Care Protection and Adoption Act and the Child Justice Act. The passage of these two acts consequently made St. Lucia compliant with the United Nations Conventions on the Right of the Child, but more importantly, it signaled the government's commitment to ensuring that the rights of children in St. Lucia are not being violated. Among the noticeable changes that this new legislation will usher is the subsuming of adoption services to the Division of Human Services, which was previously handled by the Attorney General's chambers. Further, in 2018, the government of St. Lucia approved the Protocol for Management of Child Abuse and Neglect. Such a protocol complements the new legislation, as it clearly states who are mandatory reporting officers and how these individuals are to go about reporting cases of child abuse. It is no secret that the social sector is plagued with chronic human resource constraints. Family case workers in St. Lucia have caseloads on average of above 200 cases. And this, Mr. Speaker, is way above international best practices, which should be no more than 30 to 40 cases per social worker. However, in 2018, the Division of Human Services received 3 additional staff to assist with the perennial human resource deficit. While the introduction of the addition has assisted the situation, the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice and Local Government is concerned that a more comprehensive approach must be pursued in order to meet the staffing demands of the sector. Cognizant of the current limited fiscal room, the Ministry is seeking new and innovative ways to fill this human resource gap. As such, the Ministry, recognizing currently that there exists an oversupply of teachers, Mr. Speaker, we are strongly proposing that the protracted decline in students continue and affects the ratio of teacher-student. We would like to explore the possibility of reallocating and engaging the Ministry of Education to explore the possibility of having the excess supply of teachers who have training in social work and desire a career change in helping with their profession. Mr. Speaker, such a policy has no impact on the government's wage bill and will assist in the social sector in meeting the demands. I also further add that it will mean that no teacher will be retrenched. Further, the Division of Human Services, in its efforts to better serve its clients, will be relocating its office, which provides more office space. In particular, it will ensure the privacy of the counseling section. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a quick look at the residential facilities that fall under the purview of my ministry. At the beginning of fiscal year 2018, St. Lucia had 3 residential facilities for children in need of care and protection, namely the Boys Training Center, the New Beginning Transit Home, and the Holy Family Children's Home. However, these facilities, to a large extent, cater to the northern part of the island. In 2018, the government of St. Lucia responded to a request from the Viewfort Children's Society for a subvention to operationalize a facility that the society was able to acquire with the assistance of the private sector. This subvention will ensure that children in the south of the island that are in need of care and protection are provided the necessary assistance, which will essentially ensure geographic equality and equity of such services. Speaker, when it comes to foster care, as a result of the passage of the Child Care Protection and Adoption Act of 2018, the responsibility for processing adoption is now within the remit of the Division of Human Services, which was previously under the auspices of the Attorney General's chambers. To facilitate this change, it is mandated that an adoption committee be established, which is chaired by the Director of Human Services to process all requests for adoption. When we take a look at risk youth, Mr. Speaker, during the year under review, the Child Justice Bill was enacted. The bill alters how the state interacts with children who come into conflict with the law, and most noticeably, the Act adopted the United Nations definition of a child, which is any person below the age of 18 years. This change in the definition of an adult means that St. Lucia can no longer send children below the age of 18 to prison, and as such, the Boys Training Center became the next logical institution to deal with such individuals. However, Mr. Speaker, the Boys Training Center, in its current capacity, is not prepared and equipped to manage young offenders. One possible course of action, albeit temporary, is for the Minister with responsibility for Home Affairs to declare a section where juveniles are housed as a place of security for such children. That is at the Bodily Rehabilitation Center. Mr. Speaker, the Aftercare Program, another program geared to those who are at risk. In a 2017 report by UNICEF, it was found that a substantial share of boys housed at the Boys Training Center were being transferred to the Bodily Correctional Facility. The lack of comprehensive aftercare programs have been cited as the main reason for this issue. In 2018, the ministry would have received some resources for an aftercare program. However, in this financial year, additional resources have been made available to ensure that children who are housed at the Boys Training Center, for whatever reason, are provided the necessary support once they exit the facility. Mr. Speaker, we are looking at a new residential facility for the Boys Training Center. In accordance with the Convention on the Rights of the Child, every child is entitled to protection, and as such, the government ought to provide suitable residential facilities in that regard. However, the current facility of Boys Training Center is inadequate, and girls in St. Lucia do not have a dedicated facility. As such, Mr. Speaker, again, in 2018, the ministry visited the Grand Bocolet Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, and that is in Grenada. And the Grand Bocolet Juvenile Facility was built using an underutilized school plant, exploring the low teacher-student ratio phenomenon which most OECS countries are now facing. Mr. Speaker, again, I appeal to the generosity, good judgment, and cooperation of the Ministry of Education. Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia is exploring a similar model along with the financing with the Caribbean Development Bank, where a school plant will be sourced to be repurposed as a residential facility for both boys and girls in St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, I quickly want to take a look at public works, short-term employment programs, namely the stimulus program. Mr. Speaker, government continues to launch several public works programs that are geared towards providing temporary employment for many St. Lucians. The stimulus program comes at Christmas time, at Easter, and before the reopening of school in August. Mr. Speaker, these programs go a long way in providing some relief to St. Lucians, especially at Christmas time and for the reopening of school. And we are going to continue those programs, recognizing the impact that it has, especially on the poor and needy. Mr. Speaker, another such program is the Caretakers Program. And that program is geared towards providing beautification and improving the aesthetics of our communities. That too will be continued. Mr. Speaker, there's an important program under the auspices of my ministry that I have not mentioned, the Community After School Program. Now, I spoke of aftercare for boys leaving the training center. This is separate and apart, a totally different program, a program that is provided at the community level to students in the communities. Mr. Speaker, currently the community is being served by the after-school program are Moshi, Babono, Fouacho, Marchand, Cicero, Jacmel, Canries, Soufret Town, Font Saint-Jacques, Roubleau, Vieux-Fort North, Vieux-Fort Town, and Monrepo. Again, a wide cross-section of communities, Mr. Speaker, across the board, not selected, not chosen on the basis of political consideration. We actually got $340,000 last financial year, Mr. Speaker, and not the $360,000 that was budgeted. There are at least 520 young people enrolled with the 13 centers I listed. Mr. Speaker, we want to stretch the budget this coming financial year to include Dennery and Labry. We are hopeful that the budget will be able to facilitate this small expansion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of agencies under my purview. I have spoken and addressed some of the areas that touch and concern the SSDF, St. Lucia Social Development Fund. But Mr. Speaker, the Bell Fund, though when it comes to the selection of the directors for the Bell Fund, that falls under the purview of the Ministry of Finance, but when it comes to the management and overseeing of the operations of Bell Fund, that falls under my ministry. There are a number of achievements for the Bell Fund in 2018-2019, Mr. Speaker. For example, the Bell Fund, which is challenged by the limited resources that it has available compared to the high demands that are being made on the limited resources. The Bell Fund, let me just indicate, is an organization that provides soft loans for small enterprises to people who are of low income and who are seeking employment, unemployed people. Mr. Speaker, one of the problems that plagues the Bell Fund is collection of payments for the loans. However, in the last financial year, we saw an improvement in the collection efforts, and approximately $593,000 was realized in loan receipts. The Bell Fund creates employment for approximately 50 persons, making them more self-sufficient. Mr. Speaker, the Bell Fund also launched a website and Facebook page in the last year to give itself greater presence and visibility, and it improved on the delinquent loan portfolio. Recently, the Bell Fund was reallocated to the Gablewoods Mall, thus providing better working conditions for staff and a more improved business environment for its customers. Talking about its staff, Mr. Speaker, the Bell Fund signed a collective agreement between the National Workers' Union and itself, and it also signed an MOU with the SSDF, creating the Micro Enterprise Assistance Program, where deprived persons in the various communities are given interest-free loans to establish businesses, thus making them more self-sufficient. So far, 34 persons have benefited from this business operation. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the way forward for the Bell Fund, they will be launching a new loans management system. There will be further improvement in the delinquency portfolio. The Bell Fund will be preparing, Mr. Speaker, to celebrate its 20th anniversary in this financial year coming. And of course, in compliance with the act that governs the operations of the Bell Fund, they will be seeking to complete their audited financials. Mr. Speaker, the NCA, another agency under my portfolio, and of course the NCA is charged with conservation, and they're responsible chiefly for parks and beaches in St. Lucia. A quick look at the year under review. We saw some of the activities of the NCA, including the clearing of sargassum seaweed that is on Sandy Beach in Vieux-Fort in collaboration, particularly at Sandy Beach in Vieux-Fort in collaboration with the Algus Organics, that is the company run by the St. Lucian who converts seaweed into fertilizer. Mr. Speaker, we also saw the establishment of conservation clubs in schools, as the NCA, through the United States Peace Corps, recruited 2 Peace Corps responsible for establishing those clubs, and those clubs have been established within 5 schools, namely Grosley Secondary, Coram Secondary, PI Secondary, Marshall Combined, and Ancillary Primary. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a look too at the fact that we have looked at the establishment of the Rangers program. The NCA applied for and received funding from the Tourism Enhancement Fund in the amount of $38,910 to assist with the deployment of 3 beach rangers. These rangers are currently based at Redway and have been providing invaluable assistance with respect to the security of the beach users. Mr. Speaker, the TEF has also agreed to fund the training of the rangers to become special police constables. Let me say, Mr. Speaker, this is a step in the right direction because we are overwhelmed with complaints by visitors, especially of harassment, of drug peddlers using the beaches to transact their illegal activities, and all other forms of abuse and illegal vending. Mr. Speaker, the Redway Beach is perhaps the most critical area, but not the only area. And we are hoping that in the near future, through the benevolence of private sector entities perhaps, including some of the hotels, we can get the necessary resources that is needed to provide a wider cadre of beach rangers to stem that problem that we are facing. Mr. Speaker, the sewage system at VG Beach vending facility. The sewage system there, Mr. Speaker, had to be upgraded in order to deal with the unanticipated increase in the volume of liquid waste. An amount of $34,189 was spent on an intervention by the Water and Sewage Company, WASCO, and this upgrade was completed in July 2018 and has proven to be very effective. Mr. Speaker, I'm just taking a cursory look at some of what the NCA does in the interest of time, because I want to ensure that I allocate sufficient time for my constituency. Mr. Speaker, in terms of new initiatives, for the year 2019-2020, we are looking at vending and toilet facilities at Redway. Mr. Speaker, after years of complaints from beach users as well as NCA vendors about the lack of toilet and proper vending facilities on the Redway Beach, there is the possibility that this situation will be resolved. NCA is currently awaiting engineering and electrical reports in order to submit plans to the Ministry of Planning for the necessary approval to commence construction. The training of vendors. Mr. Speaker, again, with the collaboration of the private sector, I'm pleased to announce that the Sandals hotel chain has agreed to train all the vendors licensed under the NCA and operating on beaches adjoining all of their properties in areas such as deportment and customer service. This training is scheduled for early in the new financial year at no cost to the NCA. And I want to thank Sandals and encourage other private sector entities to follow suit in providing assistance where possible in ensuring that we fulfill our social agenda.
We ask for early release.
Mr. Speaker, this encapsulates what was achieved during the year under review and some of the projections for the upcoming year as far as my ministry is concerned. Mr. Speaker, I would like now to pay some attention to my
member, you have 15 minutes in which to complete your presentation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take a look at my constituency, the constituency of Grosley, and to outline, Mr. Speaker, through you, to the residents of Grosley, some of the accomplishments of the past year and the projections for the upcoming year. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to roads and grills, given the fact that I have only 15 minutes, Mr. Speaker, I have a booklet here of accomplishments in terms of roads, grills, bridges, and so on. I will deal, and this is a document of the Ministry of Infrastructure, signed by the engineer responsible for my area. Many things, Mr. Speaker, as usual. Mr. Speaker, I will have my opportunity during my town hall meetings to articulate to the various communities in my constituency what has been done and to let them know of what will be done. Mr. Speaker, in the Grand Riviere community, we are now constructing a multipurpose court for the residents of Grand Riviere. Mr. Speaker, in the town of Gros-Islet, an information and comfort station is well on the way, and the completion of that facility is expected in the next few months. And Mr. Speaker, that provides toilet facilities to visitors and patrons who come to Gros-Islet for Friday night activities and other social activities, as well as an information center to tourists about Gros-Islet, an area that we intend to improve to attract more visitors and, of course, develop some tours where information on these could be achieved. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to parks, my people know me as the parliamentary representative who recognize the need for open spaces, green spaces, and who, in my first term, when I served that constituency, provided some 3 parks to the residents of Gros-Islet, 4 parks to the residents of Gros-Islet. Mr. Speaker, during the intervening period, when I was no longer their parliamentary representative, those parks fell into disrepair. And it had to take my return, Mr. Speaker, to bring them back up to the standard that the people of Gros-Islet deserve. So in the past year, we have done some repairs, some upgrade to the parks in the constituency, namely the park near the Gros-Islet Catholic Church, the park near the community center and playing field, the park at Moshi. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to mention the park at Pigeon Point, what I call Pigeon Point North, between Sandals and the park itself. Mr. Speaker, you would remember during my first term as minister responsible for NCA, we established some vending booths and so on, and it was our plan to establish a beach park with facilities for the family where they could have picnic and facilities for children and so on. We have not abandoned that idea, and Mr. Speaker, I have renderings which time will not permit me to display now for the further improvement and expansion of that park, as well as the establishment of a park in what I call Pigeon Point South, which is just past the bridge, which is an area known as Rukshan's area. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to sports, sponsorship of sporting and cultural activities is a run-of-the-mill everyday activity on the part of my constituency office. Mr. Speaker, the list is too numerous to mention. I will not engage this Honorable House in the tedious process of listing all the sponsorship that are provided. However, I'm very proud to say, Mr. Speaker, that when it comes to training opportunities, my constituency office, on occasions in partnership with other community agencies, has been involved in providing training for our young people. And that includes hospitality training, that includes training in culinary arts, that includes training in other life skills that we deem necessary and important to the young people. Mr. Speaker, you have heard a lot about the HRDC, a project that began during my previous tenure. And if you heard the opposition talk about abandoning projects that was begun by the previous administration, that is an example, Mr. Speaker. So I'm back, and that project will be completed. By August, we are going to have the opening of that HRDC in Gros-Islet. It will not be called an HRDC. Mr. Speaker, that is such a fantastic state-of-the-art facility that has a theater that can seat 500, a music lab, Mr. Speaker, a conference room. Unfortunately, we have a problem with the courthouse in Gros-Islet, and they're looking for housing now. We're going to allow them to use our conference facilities for the time being. And, of course, a training room with 25 computer stations, Mr. Speaker, for the training of our young people. That center deserves a jazzy name, a jazzier name than a human resource center. Mr. Speaker, we're going to launch a competition among the schools where they will tell us, a more fitting name for that center. And it's going to be open during the Gros-Islet Day weekend in August this year. Mr. Speaker, as part of the duty, the responsibility, the commitment of my constituency office, we provide notebooks to all infant and primary school students in my constituency every year. Every student with all the notebooks that they require. Of course, Mr. Speaker, thanks to the decline in the population of school children, we can afford to do that. Mr. Speaker, I run a soup kitchen from my constituency office, and so far, Mr. Speaker, we are planning to expand that project, but so far we provide 50 residents every Tuesday from Marisil, Moshi, and Grosley Town with a hot meal at midday. Mr. Speaker, we intend to expand that program, and we intend to work in collaboration with other entities who provide that service to ensure that not just on a Tuesday, but the days that are not catered for by other agencies that we cover. Mr. Speaker, I talked about training programs, but I want to single out a culinary skills training program for young people of Marisil that was conducted by a young man, a gentleman from Marisil called Chef Julio. Well, they call him Julio, but you know, it's supposed to be Julio. Mr. Speaker, the new cohort to begin, we are about to engage a new cohort to begin with young men and single mothers in other parts of the constituency. I think that is the kind of training that is necessary. Training in hospitality, training in culinary arts, the kind of training to prepare our people for the advent of the new hotel plans that will be going up, especially in the north, so that they can take advantage of the opportunities that will arise as a result of those facilities. Mr. Speaker, we are experiencing an improvement in terms of the hours of service of the Grosley Polyclinic. It is incremental, Mr. Speaker, but it is significant. As I have always said, we don't plan our time and our illness, and if I had my way, Mr. Speaker, if the resources permitted, we would have 24-hour service every day at the Grosley Polyclinic. But I'm pleased to say, as we move closer to that ideal, we now provide service going up to midnight every day of the week, Saturdays and Sundays included, as well as holidays. Mr. Speaker, we are seeing the conversion of the Grosley Secondary School to a center of excellence for sports. And while this is a national project, Mr. Speaker, I can see the immense benefits that could be derived for the constituents of Grosley. And I will ensure that I position my young people to take advantage of that new development. Mr. Speaker, ICT centers. We talk of internet penetration. Mr. Speaker, when I was parliamentary representative last time, I had established a number of ICT centers. Mr. Speaker, a succeeding administration closed down every one of them. Well, I'm back, and they are being reopened. Mr. Speaker, in Labon, a rural, remote community, we have an ICT center that is now functioning. In Lafayette, at the Mothers and Fathers Hall, we have an ICT center that is now functioning. In Diramu, for a building built for the purpose, we have an ICT center. In Rivière-Mitan, at the Mothers and Fathers Hall, we have an ICT center. And in Grand Rivière, we have rented a facility. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me just mention something I wish to lament. And I wish to put how do you call them now? The vandals on notice. Mr. Speaker, would you believe about 2 weeks ago, someone broke into the ICT center in Grand Rivière and stole 6 of the computers. I think, you know, that is a sad situation. I know that does not represent the wide cross-section of my constituency, and this is no reflection of who we are as a people. But I'd like to make an appeal to the perpetrators to desist from this. We are going to strengthen the security, including security cameras. And Mr. Speaker, if and when anyone is caught defacing, vandalizing, or breaking into public facilities in the constituency of Grosley, we will ensure that the full brunt of the law is brought to bear so that they can understand that that's not desirable. Mr. Speaker, in terms of new initiatives, with the breaking of the ICT center in Grand Rivière, Mr. Speaker, we had about 3 secondary school students who utilized the center for the SBAs, the school-based assessments, and they lost all of their material because the computers that they use were taken away. Mr. Speaker, to avert that situation, I have decided that in the coming year, in addition to the notebooks that I provide for the students of my constituency, we will be providing thumb drives to all of the students who need them.
Honourable Member, you have 5 minutes in which to complete your statement.
My time fly now? No, I'll finish. Mr. Speaker, I've already spoke about the parks, but we will see, as a new initiative, the establishment of a park in Pigeon Point South. Mr. Speaker, you've heard a lot about the Groseley waterfront development. Let me just say that with the advent of the village tourism program, you will see phase 1 in terms of the commencement of development for Groseley waterfront. That will provide facilities for cruise ship passengers to come to Groseley and ease the tension and the pressure that is at VG and Redway, and provide economic possibilities for the people of the town of Groseley. Mr. Speaker, the Moshi Wellness Center you heard in the budget presentation by the Honorable Prime Minister will be up for some attention in the upcoming year, and I welcome that development. When it comes to housing, Mr. Speaker, we are embarking on a bold housing initiative where we are going to spend some of our village tourism resources in an upgrade of the housing plants in Groseley that will be consistent with the old architecture, the French colonial architecture that Groseley used to boast in the past. Mr. Speaker, more details on this, details on other stories later. Mr. Speaker, roads maintenance and improvements. I have to touch on this. This is by far my biggest headache as a parliamentary representative. This is by far the biggest complaint that you will get from the constituency of Groseley. I keep saying we have by far the most roads and by far the most deplorable roads. Mr. Speaker, my people deserve better. I am pleased. I am elated. I am overjoyed to announce to my people that with the $42 million earmarked for road rehabilitation maintenance and upgrade, Groseley will, I am sure, be favorably considered and generously compensated as far as road rehabilitation is concerned. Mr. Speaker, let me quickly run through the list. Mr. Speaker, you know the entire $42 million will not complete all the roads in Groseley. But I must say, we will see the biggest dent in terms of road rehabilitation that you have ever seen by any parliamentary representative in any administration from the time St. Lucia became independent. Mr. Speaker, the roads we are looking at is a Piat Road, a road that was graded just the day before elections and made worse. The Casaba Road near Trim Stable towards the Rocky Hill, going towards Caribbean Breeze Guest House. Flamboyant Way, that is a Flamboyant in Cap Estate, near Golf Park. Mr. Speaker, Deramo to Labon Junction, Rivière Mita to Deramo Junction, Norbert Road, Norbert to Caref Road, the Lafayette to Caref Road, the La Retraite Road, Old Military Road, Beauséjour, Bella Rosa, Bonte Access Road, Labon to Dauphin. Well, we're not going all the way to Dauphin, but we're going to ensure that we reach at least to the last house on that road. A road to Calabash Cove in Marisil, and another Flamboyant Drive, Mr. Speaker, in Corinth, as well as a road in White Rock. All of those roads will come for some improvement, will get some attention. Not to mention, Mr. Speaker, when the Groseley Castries, Groseley Highway is improved, that will benefit the residents of Groseley as well. So, Mr. Speaker, I am excited about these prospects, and of course, I know that that will alleviate a lot of the pressure that I have experienced as a parliamentary representative when it comes to the situation with regard to my roads in my constituency. So, Mr. Speaker, not wanting to abuse your generosity and recognizing the time allotted to me, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot more to be said, a lot more to be announced. But I will wrap up my contribution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the many committed workers who worked with me during the year under review at the ministerial and constituency level. I look forward to their continued support and a redoubling of their effort in making the coming year a phenomenal success. Mr. Speaker, I appeal now to all St. Lucians to join in and work with your government in fulfilling our laudable goals for the benefit of all. To my constituents, I am grateful for your continued support, encouragement, and prayers. Let's work together as we continue to weave a brighter new day for Groseley and St. Lucia. I thank you, honorable members, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I look forward to an exciting, productive, and progressive year 2019-2020 for all St. Lucians. Thank you very much.
Honorable Member, Minister in the Prime Minister's office and member for Castries Central.
These are my synergy for playing. These are my synergy for yeah, that's about it. You need to turn on the PowerPoint and back on it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the Appropriation 2019-2020 bill as presented by the Honourable Prime Minister under the theme Growth by Empowerment for a Better Future. Mr. Speaker, of course, you will recall that the United Workers' Party was elected into office in June 2016, and we promised to build a better St. Lucia, and we continue to work towards that. And of course, the theme for this year has to be viewed in that light: empowerment for a better future, because we recognize, Mr. Speaker, that the government cannot do it alone. When the people of St. Lucia accepted or endorsed the vision that the government presented in its manifesto and gave us the mandate through the democratic process to implement that vision, the understanding was that the entire country, having due regard for that democratic process, would embrace that vision and work with the government to implement the vision that the people had already endorsed. And so the government is elected to lead, elected to guide the way, to continue to put flesh and give life to that vision, and it is expected that all persons, including the opposition, would work with the government to implement that vision, because it is the people's vision. This is not to say, Mr. Speaker, that we do not expect, in fact, welcome criticism from the opposition. This is not to say that we do not expect, in fact, welcome opposition from the opposition, because after all, in a democratic process that we embrace, an opposition is necessary. It is important for good governance. But certainly, from where I stand, what I would like to see is that there's an opposition that will, of course, constructively criticize, but will not oppose for the sake of opposing. An opposition that will realize that the election is over. And we are now in implementation mode.
That's correct. That's right.
An election and an opposition that will get out of election mode and work with the government, even while it continues to oppose constructively, to ensure that the vision that the people have embraced is realized. So it is in that light that I encourage the honorable members on the opposite side to support the appropriation bill as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is a government with vision. We came in with the vision. We have the vision. We are implementing the vision. We didn't have to appoint a vision commission. Don't get me wrong, consultation is important. And no matter how great your idea, no matter how seemingly wonderful your idea is, it is always important to consult, because no one person or no one party or no one team has a repository of all the finest ideas. And so we didn't need to appoint a vision commission. We came in with our vision, endorsed by the people, and we are continuing to implement our vision. So, Mr. Speaker, it is in that light, before I go on to matters relating to my constituency, I will just speak a little bit more, and that's in keeping again with the thrust, with our policy thrust, focused on empowerment of people. Just want to focus again on the efforts being made in my ministry to implement our vision. Mr. Speaker, I spoke about the Diplomatic Academy, and even after I spoke last week, I believe it was, I want to report that we have made headway. And I need to say this because earlier on, the leader of the opposition, I believe, in talking about the government's plans for a national health insurance, the report or the committee that has been set up, I could not believe when I heard the leader of the opposition lamenting that after 3 years we hadn't implemented national insurance. I could not believe it. I simply could not believe it. The party that he leads has been in office for 3 terms, or was in office for 3 terms, and it never happened. This government is here for 3 years, and you're saying that you are lamenting that the government has not implemented national insurance?
They're still writing the report.
Mr. Speaker, I want to recall what I said when I spoke about the report that we did, the review that we did of the P&E department. I said there were all these reports that had been done ever since independence, and they were sitting on shelves gathering dust. And of course some of them are dated. It would be foolish to simply go pick up those reports after they had sat there for years and things are changing and simply just implement. You had to take a look at what was there, review it, and then come with the report that will be implemented. And that's what this government is doing. Ever since I was Minister of Health, more than 20 years ago, we were reviewing national health insurance. And we had reports. And there were reports there from before my time. There are reports there from when the member for Castries North was the minister. And before his time, all these reports are there. We can't simply go and take and start to implement. What I'm certain will happen is under this administration, as the Prime Minister said in his speech, these will be reviewed, consultations will be held with stakeholders to find the best mechanism for implementing national health insurance. At the end of this term of office, what you will have is not a state-of-the-art hospital in the north and in the south, but you will have national health insurance, because it makes no sense having the MRI, having the CT scan, having all the latest technology, and the people still cannot access because they cannot pay. Speaker, I have to be reminded not to excite myself too much. After all, this is Holy Week. And this is the week when certainly most Christians, we're supposed to, or we're expected to, speak a little less and reflect a little more. Be a little more somber, silent, as we anticipate Good Friday, and of course our jubilation day and reservices on Easter Sunday. So I do need to remind myself that I shouldn't excite myself too much in the spirit of Holy Week. But, Mr. Speaker, the point I was making with regard to the reason for the review and the report is that this time it's with a difference. We will be implementing, as we are demonstrating in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where we are moving ahead to establish the Diplomatic Academy after it has been promised after it has been recommended through so many reports ever since independence. So I saw the mock website earlier this week. Our logo has been developed. We have completed the drawings. I had mentioned that we will restructure and refurbish our existing premises so that we can use space more effectively. And I also indicated that I believe that that will be done at no additional costs to the government of St. Lucia. So that's happening. I wanted to say a little bit on the protocol work that we will be doing as well. Going ahead on the theme of partnership. Mr. Speaker, again, no new initiative, if it is to involve people, can be done without their partnership, without consultation with them, and without empowering them. And that is something the protocol department of my ministry has, I would say, suffered for quite a while, in that their function and role sometimes is misunderstood. I'm not here to defend the protocol department. I know we are not doing things perfectly necessarily. We have had a lot of resource constraints. Mr. Speaker, through all this time, just up until last week, we only had 2 vehicles assigned to the protocol department. And so often, Mr. Speaker, we have to borrow vehicles, borrow drivers from other ministries. And the work of the department is done to a very large extent, very silently. We have relations, diplomatic relations with at least 111 countries. And every day, in and out, even when we're sleeping in our beds, we have diplomats and guests coming and leaving and going, and our department being the face, being the first point of contact for all these dignitaries, we have to make sure that we can provide the necessary courtesies as provided by the Vienna Convention under the theme of reciprocity. Mr. Speaker, only just recently we were able to get an additional vehicle which would assist the department in its functions. There have been a lot of criticism, Mr. Speaker, about the department, and a lot of it has to do also because the general public and even government agencies do not understand the role of the department. Sometimes our expectations of the department are higher than what they can deliver, and also sometimes we ourselves do not know what we should do to assist the department. I'm saying, for example, you go to a function, Mr. Speaker, the protocol department has never been informed. Persons have taken it upon their own just to organize a function. And the morning they call the protocol department and say, can we get assistance? Assuming that the officers know that there'll be 25 dignitaries there, assuming that the officers know of what rank those dignitaries will be, we send out invitations, Mr. Speaker, RSVP. Few people respond. But yet still, the department is supposed to know and expect that you will be attending with your wife and probably with your daughter when you never RSVP'd. And suddenly, that brings something that perhaps had been planned very carefully into confusion. I'm saying this to say that all of these reforms, changes, improvements that we will be making, we will have to engage and consult with stakeholders. Because if we're planning for agencies, agencies must understand what we expect of them, and we too must understand what they expect of us, so that it can be planned adequately. I thought I would say that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I heard the Leader of the Opposition, and I am doing this just as a gentle correction, because I believe the Leader of the Opposition misunderstood or confused the term wellness center with mental wellness center. Maybe it just was inadvertent, because I thought I heard the Leader of the Opposition say the Prime Minister said he was building a mental wellness center in Mekut South. The Prime Minister never said that. A wellness center, which is what we call our health centers. But ever since we embarked on health sector reform, which was quite a few decades ago, well, 2 decades, not quite a few, 2 decades, the whole idea of health and wellness is what we were promoting, so that at the primary healthcare level, the emphasis on prevention and healthy lifestyles and wellness, embracing a complete state of mental, physical, spiritual health, was the new terminology that we used. And so the Prime Minister did not indicate that we were going to establish mental wellness centers in these areas. But that would not be too bad either, because we need mental wellness in the community. So even if the wellness centers, which is what they really are, we're going to be focusing on mental wellness, of course, that's what we need to be doing. Because so long ago it has been determined in terms of best practices that you can't necessarily lock people up or keep them secluded in order to treat their mental illness. In fact, integrating people in the community where they are close to family, friends, they have the support, is the better model. And if I may say as well, with a view to perhaps explaining our policy thrust on this to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, yes, we're bringing additional services to the Mental Wellness Center at the Millennium Highway. And that is in keeping with established best practices. This is the modern way of doing it. You do not necessarily have a standalone mental wellness facility. It further stigmatizes the patients. And so it is not unusual in a hospital complex to have a wing where you have persons with mental wellness health issues. In fact, it is encouraged, and that was so even 20 years ago we were looking at doing it that way. So this is a modern way of doing it. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, it means that you have a large facility, you can share your services. You have a kitchen that can be shared, you have a laundry that can be shared, so you are becoming more efficient. Cost effectiveness. So this is what this is all about, and actually our approach is very much on board, and I'm sure the people of St. Lucia have understood why we had to go back to the drawing board with regard to the St. Jude Hospital. And again, in the spirit of Holy Week, Mr. Speaker, one lesson that we can all learn from this is that, Speaker, things that are good and beautiful and lasting most times come with suffering and patience and waiting. In this case, I would be the first to admit the suffering has been too long and unnecessary. But this government is not to take the blame or the full blame for it. Not to. Because after all, let us recall that we are in office just amounting to 3 years. And under the previous administration, the parliamentary representative for Vieux Fort South the Minister of Finance, the former Prime Minister. That was his constituency. It was not done then. Why is it that less than 3 years, this government is not being given a chance to do its work?
That's not cabinet. A cabinet, you could tell the boys. That's parliament.
Mr. Speaker,
Can't do that.
I want to just pause a little while to speak on the issue of Venezuela. Because, Mr. Speaker, you know, in our minds, we are very clear. And I heard the member for Labrie on the last occasion that we spoke in this honorable house say repeatedly that cabinet did not agree, or words to that effect, to join the Lima group. Words to that effect. Mr. Speaker, we are very clear on this side that on the issue of Venezuela, we have acted responsibly, we have taken leadership, and we have made the right decisions, not just as St. Lucia, but as a member of the Caribbean community. Mr. Speaker, you know, what happens to us is that we become, because there is so much sad news of suffering everywhere, of hardship, of demonstrations. Every day we turn on our news, there is some big tragedy somewhere. We become immune to it and we say it's just news. We say it's just news, we go to bed, we sleep, it's just news. Mr. Speaker, there is a real humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. Mr. Speaker, Venezuela is part of our region. Mr. Speaker, we have a historical, a familiar bond with the people of Venezuela. And even if it were not Venezuela, even if it were in a far region of sub-Saharan Africa, we must not forget that as members of the international community, as members of a family of nations, whether it be United Nations or the Organization of American States, we have a responsibility as a sovereign country to take decisions that will work for the common good, whether or not we have a direct interest in it. This is not to say we do not have a direct interest in what happens in Venezuela. Mr. Speaker, every group that has been established, whether it be the EU contact group, whether it be the Lima group, whether it be the Montevideo consensus group, every group has recognized that there is a problem. There is an urgent problem in Venezuela, and there needs to be a solution to the problem. Mr. Speaker, CARICOM has now come to agree that there needs to be fresh elections or a referendum in Venezuela. CARICOM didn't just arrive at this decision overnight. Our Prime Minister had a very important role to play and did take the leadership in ensuring that we maintain the dialogue. And despite what I should call the fundamental differences that individual CARICOM nations have on this issue, we have come to agree that there needs to be elections or a referendum in Venezuela. We've agreed that. The question is, if we believe that, what do we do about it? Why is it important to have an election? Why is it important? Why is it urgent? Because the solution lies with the people of Venezuela. We've all admitted that. We've all agreed that. How will it happen? How will it happen? There has to be pressure put in some way. There has to be a repeated call, whether it be by regional governments, by international governments. There has to be a repeated call for fresh elections to happen. It will not happen on its own. We've all agreed that there should not be a use of force or military intervention in Venezuela. And what has St. Lucia done? We have said at the OAS that we do not recognize the legitimacy of the Maduro government. Because clearly, the situation under which the elections were held were far from democratic. I don't know how we can have members of the opposition here, sitting here, and tacitly agreeing that to jail leaders of the opposition is fine in a country. What you would not accept for St. Lucia, you should not think it's okay for your neighbors if you care that much. If you care that much. Mr. Speaker, we do not just grab foreign policy out of the sky. We do not just follow what we see others doing. When you base your policy on principle, clear, established principles, you do not wait to see what other people are doing. You can take the lead. And that's what we have done. That's what we have done. And we will continue to do it. Because authority has to be exercised with responsibility, with compassion, and sometimes not to act sometimes can become a wicked act in itself. I leave it there. I leave that there. Except to give the people of St. Lucia the confidence in knowing that, contrary to the claims of the member for Labrie, the government is very clear and agreed on our position on the Venezuela issue. We don't need one. The government has discussed it and agreed. A cabinet conclusion doesn't come out of every single government discussion. If you knew your cabinet rules, you would know that. Mr. Speaker, I shall move on. I shall move on. Mr. Speaker, after I was elected, first of all, I do have to acknowledge the presence of so many of my constituents in the House today. I want to thank them for their presence and to tell them how welcome they are. Speaker, after I was elected in June 2016, I would say perhaps was too eager, too bold, too courageous, and I made a promise that I wanted to know each constituent by name. And I guess you can ask me, how am I doing with that? Speaker, but you know, when you start getting old, you don't remember as well as you used to. I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker. That pledge was meant to say that we will adopt a personalized approach in addressing the needs of our constituents. It was meant to say that every single person is important. That in developing programs and services for the constituency, it will not be a one-size-fits-all approach. but we will seek to take the time to care, to understand, and to think outside the box, to be creative, and to come up with programs, solutions, and services that will address the particular need of the particular individual who I was elected to serve. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the team of people who've been working with me so tirelessly to live up to that pledge and to serve our people with distinction. Mr. Speaker, it is a challenge. Castries Central is unique. I mean, my people will hang me up on the electric pole when they have to. They're not happy. They will let their dissent be known in no uncertain terms. I will get WhatsApp messages or calls on my phone that are not necessarily nice. And I have to understand that I love my people. These are my people. They're people who I've been associated with for all these years. Some of them I knew as little babies. They wore Auntie Sarah t-shirts. I love my people. And it is hard to get upset. They can get upset with me. I can't get upset with them. So I just want to take this opportunity again to thank the people of Castries Central for the trust and confidence they have placed in me and the love they show in all the different ways they show it. So, Mr. Speaker, I explained on the last occasion where we had the budget debate that we established a program called Synergy. And what I would like to do very quickly is to just give us an update. And again, that is in keeping with our policy thrust of empowering people, of creating a new St. Lucia. We recognize that we do that individual by individual, family by family, community by community. That's how we build a nation. Through a person-centered approach that then filters right up. So we launched Synergy in June 2018. It's just approaching 1 year. And Mr. Speaker, we've set up our entire office to support this program. We have just launched, for example, a data management system that's still on trial, because we've had close to 500 persons register for Synergy. I have to admit that we have had quite a few persons from outside Castries Central register, but we have welcomed whoever has come knocking at our doors. This is a pilot program. I want to hasten to add that at the end of the 18-month pilot, we've been working closely with the Department of Statistics, who are doing tracer studies for us as we go along. So we will be in a position to know how well this program is working. If it is, we hope it is, we think it is, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be adjusted, and how it can be used as a best practice model. So certainly, whilst we started off this program to benefit and focus on the needs of Castries Central, we soon realized that it perhaps has value way beyond Castries Central, and that is, we're hoping that when we have the evaluation report, we can present it to the Honorable Prime Minister to see whether it can be something that can be implemented nationally. So you will see that we've engaged our friends in the international community, and one might say, oh, you're the Minister of Foreign Affairs, so you bring in resources into your constituency. Of course I'm doing that. But the idea is that we are developing a template, a model, that can then be hopefully rolled out island-wide. So this is not something that's focused solely on Castries Central. So, Mr. Speaker, we launched the program, and I would just want to run through Very quickly, what are some of the current programs that we're doing and where we are at with them? Our first program is Urban Grow. We approached the Ministry of Agriculture, and I have a big award for the Minister of Agriculture today. A very big award. Because, Mr. Speaker, it didn't take 2 meetings. We approached the Minister of Agriculture, we shared our idea, and we were allowed to use 2.16 acres of farming land at Roseau. And we've been working on this ever since. We had the support of the engineers of the Ministry of Agriculture, whether it be to assist us with irrigation, whether it be to assist us with mapping out the farm, whether it be to do the soil testing. So we've worked very closely with the Ministry of Agriculture. So the idea is that, and you will see the map that has been designed for us, it's 2.16 acres. We will do commercial and recreational farming. So far we have 5 farmers certified from Castries Central, and some of those persons have went into farming for the first time. We hope to certify 5 more, so we hope come in the next few weeks, and certainly by the end of the year, we would have 10 commercial farmers. Also, we plan a rent-a-row program where we will have at least 30 persons doing recreational farming. The whole idea is to encourage people to grow food. So we're growing communities, we're growing food. If you note, we can't see this so clearly, but there is a shed that has been constructed at on one end of the farm. This shed will be used for training because, as I indicated prior, at the heart of this program is personal development. So we have a training room there where we will, on a daily basis, do personal development with the farmers. We have a kitchen. They will be given a hot meal every day. We also have lockers for them, a lunch eating area. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, a great thank you to the Republic of China and Taiwan. They've been very much on board with us on this project. A lot of the funding for it, of course, came from our CDP, but just last week, we were able to sign through our offices in Washington with the Pan American Development Foundation. We received a grant of $100,000 US that will assist us in running the farm for this financial year. And this was sought, and we got the assistance through the government of Taiwan. So I really, really want to thank them for that. I spoke with the Minister of Agriculture again. I begged him so many times. I spoke with him just 2 days ago and asked him to send an extension officer to be with us, to be assigned with us. And he has done so. I got word from the PS today. The monies that I spoke about, in addition to ensuring that we have our aquaponics and the greenhouse, we will provide insurance for our farmers. We will engage a business development officer so we can ensure that the synergies between the purchasers and the farmers are there. We will have a security system. We just heard what the minister said about how these computers disappeared, and we know what a disincentive predial larceny is for farmers. So we've had all of that drawn up, and this is just a few of the things, Mr. Speaker, because I know time is running, but just to say that we have secured the funding to run this farm for 1 year, and we want to do this very scientifically. For example, we are approaching another friendly government so we can ensure we have the farm management software. So we're doing things very scientifically. And some of our farmers are here, and of course they are very excited. I have to say they have been involved in the works, in the preparation of the farm. So you saw some people building the fence and getting the soil ready. So we've taken some of our farmers from the inner city areas, and they've enjoyed being out of trouble in Roseau. In fact, some of them don't even want to come back up. So I have to speak with Minister Dominic Feely about that. Mr. Speaker, just moving on very quickly, One of the programs that we have started training, which we are linking to the urban growth, is called Harvest, from farm to table. What are we doing with the food that we are not able to sell, for example? Well, we are starting a farm to table program as well. We're starting the training in this financial year, but we will work much more at it in the next financial year. But just to say, the idea is that we will train the participants in the Synergy program who are interested in culinary training. The government of Peru has started this training for us. You can see some of the pictures of the training that we just held. Peru is known very much for its culinary skill, its gastronomy. I think 5 of the world's top restaurants are in Peru, and we had persons here from the Tourism Training Center of Peru training our participants for us. So the idea is that we marry harvest with urban grow so that we grow on the farm what we intend to use in the signature dishes that we will create. We're hoping that our young entrepreneurs in Castries Central who are interested in developing their skill can do that and learning new dishes to enhance the product they offer. And one of the dreams we have also is seeing how we can improve the quality of food in school feeding programs. So we're heading for that as well. We gently whispered to the Minister of Agriculture that there is a portion of land that adjoins the piece that he has assigned to us. And once we can maximize the use of the land that we have been allotted, we'd be interested in also doing the farming on the other side. This is not far-fetched. You would be surprised. We've launched about 12 programs with Synergy, and by far the most popular is urban growth. By far. And it's not because we have invited people to join. People have come and said they want to farm, and more women than men. So agriculture is alive in Central Castries. And I want to say hats off to the Minister of Agriculture. When we went to speak with him, it was like he was waiting for us. We didn't have to ask twice. And I don't know what he said to his staff, but all of his staff have similarly received us in like manner. And we're also very fortunate. The person leading the charge for us as a consultant is Mr. Rufus Leon, who used to be our Chief Agricultural Extension Officer for many years. So he's the one who really gave us the confidence to do this, and he's on board with us big time on this. So I just want to say thank you, Mr. Minister of Agriculture. I just want to move quickly to Trade Tech. This is our program where we provide skills for mechanics, plumbers, general maintenance. We sponsored a total of 31 persons who did their training at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. We want to thank Sir Arthur. Here are some of the pictures. We will see some of the figures later on the categories and what they trained in. And I believe I'm correct that we had 100% completion. In fact, what happened, some of the persons who were not able to finish the program, Sir Arthur Lewis kindly agreed to run some of the courses again at a more convenient time. So I think we still have 11 persons who are just catching up. But we want to make sure at the end of the program that everybody has completed. The self-development is very important. We spent a whole week on self-development, and every morning we did the self-development again. And really, persons looked forward to coming to the class. If there was no class, they're on the WhatsApp group and saying, how come they're not in class? And so I want to thank some of the course leaders and the personal development coach who's here too, as well, our project manager. We haven't planned our graduation yet. Some of them have received internships. Some of them are on training. A lot of them, we plan that they will be the ones who will be working in the facilities that we are going to be establishing. So down in our farm, if we have a plumbing work to be done, if we have electricity to be done, we're hoping that we can continue to engage and provide employment for them in all of the other programs. Of course, they may have to be shadowing somebody else, but we have found very good contractors. Those we have engaged have agreed to take on our people to do the continued mentorship. So that's Trade Tech, and we want to thank South Louis Community College. Again, all this initiated with funds from CDP. And in order to be able to do that, because traditionally we use CDP for bricks and mortar, and from the time we came into government, the Prime Minister and the Minister for Economic Development said we have to move away from the T Canal. Although it's important to have the sidewalks and the bridges and so, we need programs that are more empowering, more sustaining, so that people don't feel they always need to depend on a politician for a contract. So, in order to even begin to do the work in this way, we had to get the Minister for Economic Development on board. Because as you know, the CDB funding resides in the Ministry of Economic Development. And so we had to bring the minister. He came over willingly to our constituency office. We explained to him what we wanted to do. We indicated that we really wanted SSDF to partner with us on this. It was so much easier when dealing with having to pay stipends to so many young people. In fact, they got stipends throughout the course. Having to pay those stipends much more easily managed through SSDF. And so the minister was so willing and ready to think outside the box, work with us, and help us develop the Synergy Resource Center that we have located in the constituency office, and also to enable SSDF to manage some of these funds so that we could be more efficient. So, Minister, we have an award for you. We have an award for the Minister for Economic Development, because had he not have the vision and be prepared to do things differently, creatively, to ensure we reach the people, to ensure we develop a personalized approach. Is Mr. Speaker telling me my time is up? I can't believe it.
That
in
you
any
have 15
event,
minutes.
I've got 15 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will try. So, I will try, and then we'll see. So, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, through you, to the Minister for Economic Development. I want to move now, Mr. Speaker, to wash and browse. That's an idea. Again, the whole idea of the programs came out of the community itself. We had a meeting of community leaders in January of 2018, and we had come up with some of our ideas, and we explained to them what we wanted to do. We saw the work that persons in the community were already doing. So we saw the plumbers, we saw persons doing little farming next to their homes. When we went out, we thought we were coming with a new idea, but people are doing farming. People are doing little things near their homes. So the whole idea of the wash and browse, there are a lot of persons washing cars, hustling in the city. In fact, we had a problem down by the CDC where I had some residents who had signed so many petitions because there was someone using a power wash, causing a lot of noise. We had had the idea before, but to cut a long story short, Mr. Speaker, to use common terms, the whole idea of the car wash is that we will provide the amenities, the Wi-Fi, the structure, so that these young men or that these men can have a viable business. One condition, of course, is that they do our personal development every week, every day, as it is organized for them. So we're at the stage now of building the car wash, and I had a look at it this morning. It's coming on very nicely. The team is putting together the structure, and we will sit with, again, the SSDF, the AG's chambers perhaps, to see what is the best structure we can have so that this is managed properly. Our interest is in ensuring that ordinary work what is sort of as ordinary work is given the structure and its dignity is recognized. Not because you're a car washer doesn't mean you cannot have a structured business. So that's what we're doing. We're supporting those people who are washing cars, giving them the necessary business training, the business coaching, the self-development, and providing the structure so that they can do this and they can have a well-run, structured business. Again, this is a model. If it works, perhaps it can be replicated. You would have heard a few rumblings, Mr. Speaker, when we just started the project. And if I may just say what it was and thank the Minibus Association, particularly the Grosley Minibus Association. They're very happy with the car wash. They loved the idea, they welcomed it. Apparently, Mr. Speaker, in a previous life, or previously, a court had been built near the Grosley bus station. And when that court was being built, a sports court, a basketball court, they were given assurances that the premises there would be paved because their vehicles are all there and driving in mud and everything. And so apparently, so I understand, they were promised that the premises would be paved. That didn't happen. And when they saw yet another project coming and nothing was told to them about or nothing was said about paving, they became very concerned. So this is the benefit of dialogue. And once we understood that that was what the issue was, we thought it was such a legitimate complaint. And so we have been working with them. I've spoken with the minister responsible for transport, and he has assured me that this matter will be addressed because the Grosley minibus drivers have worked very well with us to get this project off the ground. And we would like to see that a genuine need and concern that they have for better amenities for themselves is addressed. So I want to thank ahead of time the Minister for Transport who has agreed to work with us on this. So, Mr. Speaker, so this should be, I am told that within 6 weeks this should be operational, but we assured the bus drivers that unless their needs are addressed, we won't operationalize it. In the meantime, we'll do the personal development, we will sort out the rules for the persons who will be running it. It will be their individual businesses that they will run. And what we will do is provide the coaching and the support that they need. Our Become program seeks to identify and nurture talent. And we had recently at least 50 persons audition. We're doing a production called The Shelter. We hope to do that in summer. The whole idea is to identify talent, and we have some other plans, some other ideas as to how we can turn that talent into business and entrepreneurship. So that is ongoing, and this is one of our programs. Speaker, we also have a program called Grief to Grace, because at the end of the day, we come to these programs as who we are. And there is a lot of grief, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of abuse, there are a lot of issues that all of us have to deal with. Mr. Speaker, we go through life and we're bruised and we're battered. Every one of us has a grief, has a loss, has something that has happened in our lives from way back that is affecting who we are today. And sometimes we don't even know it. It might have been that teacher who always put me down, who never thought I could do anything. It might be my dad, who's long deceased, who never believed in me, and I'm carrying that, and that affects how I can benefit and take advantage of these programs and live to my full potential. So in drawing of these programs, we are not assuming that people are coming to these programs and they're perfectly suited for any program. And so we also run, as part of our facility support, a Grief to Grace, retreat program. We're hoping to become an established Grief to Grace site in St. Lucia. We're working with an agency called the New Heart of Texas, and the clinical psychologist behind this program is a lady called Dr. Teresa Burke. I have done a few retreats with her myself, even prior to being re-elected, because we all have grief, we all have trauma, we all have loss. And those of us who lead this program are the first ones to go through it. Whatever we offer to our participants, we go through it as participants ourselves. And so we are continuing our training on the Grief to Grace, and we are hoping to have our first Grief to Grace retreat for our participants here later this year. It is voluntary, but what we offer is a safe space, a safe confidential space with clinical psychologists, spiritual support to explore the wounds of grief and to heal. And it's an ongoing process. So as we become healed from our brokenness, we can receive more, we can participate more, we can grow more. So we're all journeying together. So that is very important. We all need it, government and opposition. We all need it. Mr. Speaker, that's it. Just quickly, can I have just 10 more minutes?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to invoke Standing Order 3210 to give the Honourable Member 15 more minutes.
Honourable members, the question is that Standing Order 4210 be invoked and that the Minister be granted an additional 15 minutes. And I'll put the question, as many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. And many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Just to finish off, just something I forgot to say. Thank you, Honourable Member, and thank you, members. I forgot to say on the Grief to Grace, Dr. Teresa Burke is now developing a program, the first program that she's developing for military officers, persons who serve in the military, because so much trauma is seen. That's a program, for example, that can be replicated and used for our police officers, firemen, first responders, persons who see trauma. I mean, these things affect people, and we should not assume that that everything is fine. And, Mr. Speaker, we all have a responsibility, particularly if we are in leadership and serving others. We need to understand who we are, to be open to exploring our brokenness, and to be opening to heal as well. So I will no doubt be offering the program to members of the government and as well members of the opposition. We will be making the information freely available. New programs this year that we are launching: clean, green, and safe. Clean, green, and safe communities. And this is really to ensure that we are ready as communities to work in partnership with the agencies such as the Solid Waste Management Authority, the Castries Constituency Council, and those agencies that are responsible for keeping our communities clean. We recognize, as people in Central Castries, we have a responsibility. Mr. Speaker, I had a long discussion with the gentleman who heads Solid Waste, Mr. Justin Seeley, to understand the challenges that the Solid Waste Management Authority faces, particularly in Castries Central. I've heard the lamentations of the minister responsible for solid waste, the Minister of Education. Her constant exhortations, I believe she's getting the resources she's been asking for so long. We want to make sure as communities we are doing our part and ready to work in partnership. Mr. Speaker, the situation of garbage in my constituency is a problem. Mr. Speaker, the number of times I receive texts and WhatsApp pictures of garbage in my constituency that my constituents are fed up of seeing around their neighborhoods. Speaker, I used to be frustrated about it because in the middle of the night I get a garbage picture. I wake up in the morning, I get a garbage picture. I get a video of people quarreling about the garbage and cursing my name. Because all of these good efforts that we've been working towards would be overshadowed by garbage. And we could not allow that to happen. So our role is to work closely with Solid Waste Management Authority. Our intention is to have clean, green, and safe stewards. So we'll zone our constituency and have persons responsible for ensuring that we take the message of the importance of having clean environments to the community. Now, I understand that there are challenges with solid waste, and whereas in the Castries area there are more frequent garbage collection days than in the rural areas, maybe the garbage collection has not been as frequent as it should be because of the lack of resources. But also, we have an additional problem of indiscriminate garbage disposal. And we as residents of Castries Central need to take responsibility. I'm at home and it's my birthday and my boyfriend brings me a new stove. And I just decide I'm taking my old stove and putting it by the road, whether or not it's bulky waste day. This is what happens. Or I wake up in the morning and I'm in a good mood, blast my music, and I start spring cleaning. And everything is going to go by the side of the road today, whether or not it's garbage day. These are the sorts of things that happen. And whereas we are assured that solid waste will address the issues it needs to address, we too need to be responsible. But the blame is not just on residents of Castries Central. Because persons come from outside our community, carry their garbage, and along the way, they didn't drop it in their community because it's not their garbage day, and they want their community to remain clean, and just fling it from the minibus, and they just land it in our constituency, whether or not it's garbage day, and then they blame us for an untidy community. So there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. And of course, because of the unplanned settlements, we find it is very difficult for those big garbage trucks to maneuver and reach in those smaller communities. So the idea of clean, green, and safe is that we are taking this seriously, and as residents of Castries Central, we will do our part so we will be in a better position to hold authorities accountable. On the whole issue of the green theme, Mr. Speaker, so we will keep our communities cleaner, we'll be more responsible on the garbage issue, we will have a more structured cleaning and grass cutting program, not just a stimulus one that comes 3 times a year, but we will use these resources to have a more structured program, and we will be creating some green spaces in the community. Speaker, apparently they're laughing about the boyfriend.
Just about to ask you whether you need protection from your own people.
No, I'm fine. They just find it very funny that the boyfriend would buy the stove and that would cause a garbage problem.
It's a fridge that ended up by the road in Bexon.
So, Mr. Speaker, this is what we've proposed for the Mondido Green Space. This is a proposal, and I need to thank the Minister of Planning. The Minister of Planning also deserves an award because his chief architect, the people in his department, have been so gracious. In addition to, they were the ones who did the drawings for the car wash that you saw. They did the drawings for the farmhouse that you saw. They did this drawing for the proposed park in Mondido Green Space. But in addition to that, they helped us acquire this land. And if you saw how it was before, Mr. Speaker, this is how it was before. This is it. This land opposite Francis and Francis. Once I showed this picture, and this is nice. You should see the garbage dump. This was there before. So the idea is that we're cleaning up the place, and we're doing it in an organized way. So we've done this, we've done the picket fence, and now this is what is proposed, but it has to be discussed with the community. And whilst I'm on the Minister for Planning, hats off to him as well, because we've now acquired the building that houses the Synergy Resource Center, and that will be a personal development and training center. So Minister for Planning also gets big awards. Synergy Housing, I'm going quickly. That's a new program we're doing. You will remember we spoke about Joy Homemakers, where we're creating a hospitality model for the home sector, and been training the Joy Homemakers in that. The New Zealand government has assisted us with this. We're bringing in Synergy Housing this year. We'll be doing repairs, refurbishment of homes, etc. But the idea is that we're not just building a box and leaving. We're helping you to organize your home. We're helping you to structure your home. So this is a home we built for a gentleman, very much in need. And if you see, he just has a stove there, he just has a bed. What? Are we going to walk away and let him put his clothes on the floor? No, we won't do that. If he needs to have a cupboard, if he needs to have a closet, we're going to also do that for him, because the whole idea is improving quality of life. It's taking a personalized approach. And one of the things we also want to ensure is that we support families whilst we're doing that. Synergy Hub. That's a new program that's coming. The whole idea is that we're taking all these services that we have in our main office, advice, support, job listings and applications, scholarship listings, small group trainings. Remember, we showed you the website last year, and you can go into the website. It's www.centralsynergy.org. We show you everything we do, but the idea is now to create hubs in the communities. We have community centers that are so underutilized. We're now in discussions with the Wapatat community group. See, there's a center there. I believe it's only utilized on Wednesdays. It was built under the with the former rep, but it's, just this week we've had to do some repairs here. The whole idea is that if we can have a section of this, have a synergy hub, bring the services to the community. We can do mediation there, community mediation. That's one of our programs. Even a JP can go there during the week. We can have exercise classes there, pressure, check your pressure monitors. We can do so much there if we create a hub in the communities. So we're not building necessarily new centers, but utilizing them better. We're bringing also this year Synergy Tween. That's our after-school program. If you just go back on that slide, we can see this is what our hub will look like. You have the community center, and you have a hub located there. So people do not need to come to town to get our services. The speaker, Synergy Tween, that's our after-school program that we are developing. And we're doing the pilot for ages 8 to 12, sports, pets, homework, health, gardening, cooking. We're taking all these programs that we're doing, the urban grow, the trade tech, the harvest, we're scaling it down to an 8 to 12-year-old. So they'll be doing their gardening, but they'll have the special gardening implements for their size. They'll be doing the culinary training, but the kitchen will be for them. They'll be doing the product design, the art and craft, dance and drama, fashion, and of course etiquette and grooming. And this is where we propose to have it. We've identified this building. That's a great building for us to have our Synergy Tween program, 8 to 12-year-olds. The speaker, we have a continuing program that's called Finishing and Diplomacy. Just to say very quickly, the theme is inspiring model citizenship and ambassadorship. Courtesy and good manners, social etiquette, business etiquette, how to dress properly, and this runs right through all of our programs. So regardless of which program you're in, you're doing finishing and diplomacy. Sport, our theme is diligence in sport, diligence in purpose. What we believe is that every sportsman runs two races, the race of the sport and the race of life. And so the whole idea is creating and implementing programs which foster good sportsmanship and promote good sporting values. And we're seeing the thrust of the government in sport, and we're positioning ourselves to make sure at Castries Central, although we're not getting one of those big sporting facilities, we're positioning ourselves to make sure we can work very closely so that our sportsmen and sportswomen can get the support they need. And if we just want to show you the things we've done, we renovated the CDC court, and we sponsored a small gold competition for the young ones. We also are working right now on renovating the court at New Village, and also on our website, sporting organizations can go there, they can register with us, and what we want to drive home to them is that we will invest not just in the sport, but also in sporting values. Mr. Speaker, we've just showed very briefly some of the other pure, I should say, concrete projects that we've done. Well, this is all of our programs that we have established, and or we will be establishing this year, and this is some of the other work that we've done in the community. And just have a look quickly at some of the figures in terms of the trainings that we've done. In terms of the training, we've trained 46 persons, and here you can see SALCC, the Farmer Field Program, the Peruvian Program, and also small business training with SEDU. And also in terms of the synergy pathway, we have an addiction intervention and rehabilitation program, the Grief to Grace that we spoke about, and our general synergy pathway personal development program. So, Mr. Speaker, I have not mentioned the Minister for SSDF, Minister responsible, that's the Member of Parliament for Grosley, for I explained how much SSDF has been involved in the work we do, and it would not be possible without the support of the Minister responsible. Mr. Speaker, I have to mention the Prime Minister. How could we in Castries Central come with such a new idea, asking for so many things to be done differently? How could we possibly have even been able to have the courage to think about that if we didn't have a Prime Minister who welcomed creativity? I think I spoke about that before. The opportunity there is in that cabinet to come with new ideas, the openness and willingness to embrace those ideas and work with it. And this is possible under the Prime Minister who leads this country. And we in Castries Central owe a debt of gratitude to him. And we'd like to say this to him tonight. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to say that there is nothing I enjoy more. There's nothing that gives me more satisfaction than to walk through my constituency, to visit people, to sit and talk with an old lady. I used to enjoy sitting and talking with my grandmother. As a child, I enjoyed that. This is where I really feel that I enjoy the work I do. But over the past 2.5 years, to put this program together had to take hours and hours of work, sourcing the funding, drawing up the logos, just putting the ideas of it. Mr. Speaker, even my eyesight has deteriorated because of the sheer number of hours on the computer just drawing up these programs. I'm saying this because sometimes, and I think all politicians go through it, your constituents say, we're not seeing you, we're not seeing you, we're not seeing you. And of course, people want to share the love, and we understand that. Mr. Speaker, but you go to a constituency and you see a problem, and you know it can be fixed, but you need time to put something together to fix it. There's a Mr. Mitchell in my constituency. The last time I WhatsApped him was for Christmas. I went to Mr. Mitchell's house, and I know that Synergy Housing needs to support Mr. Mitchell. Never told him anything, never promised him. I WhatsApped him last week and didn't get him. But since I left his house, I haven't forgotten that we need a Synergy Housing program to support Mr. Mitchell. So I just want to reassure my constituents, out of sight is not out of mind. You go back without a plan and you have to make another promise. You go back in and you didn't get to do what you promised to do before, and you have to make another promise to do it again. And we're about services, not promises. We're about implementing, and that takes time. So I want to reassure my constituents. We've now put a structure in place we have these programs running, we can come to the constituency with practical answers to problems. Not all the answers, but we have a framework. So I want to thank them for their continued support, for their patience, and how much they have embraced this project. Because at the end of the day, without the participants, the project is just an idea with no life. So in closing, Mr. Speaker, as we approach Holy Week, I want to take this opportunity to wish my constituents a holy and blessed Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and a joyful Easter. I also, Mr. Speaker, would want to ask for your understanding and to be excused because, Mr. Speaker, I would like to be with my own family for the holy season, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, should I come to Parliament tomorrow, I may not be able to stay for the whole day because I am due to get a flight tomorrow, and it was my intention to get home at least before Good Friday, but it seems I will arrive on Good Friday. So, Mr. Speaker, I do want to take this opportunity again to wish my constituents a blessed and holy week, to thank all those agencies, the constituency group, the Synergy team, all those people who have worked so hard and embraced this project with all of their ideas, and again, to thank the Prime Minister for presenting a budget that sticks to our theme, our vision for a new St. Lucia, and that focuses this year on empowering. And just to remind us that we can only do that if we are all in. We all need to be in to ensure that this budget is implemented for the benefit of St. Lucia as a whole. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, I beg that we suspend the House until 8:30.
Honorable members, the question is that the House does stand suspended until 8:30. I now put a question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. House is suspended until 8:30.
You did very well.
Okay, first, we've just concluded the first leg of the debate on the Appropriations Bill 2019-2020. We've heard from 3 members of Parliament who touched on a number of topics. Firstly, Leader of the Opposition and the MP for Castries East, Honorable Philip J. Pierre, who posed a number of questions to the government on various sectors, including infrastructure, tourism, healthcare, and the creative industries. He also mentioned the key priority areas for the opposition, including healthcare, specifically the Owen King EU Hospital and the St. Jude's Hospital, as well as national health insurance. We also heard from Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment, and the MP for Grosile, Honorable Leonard Montoute, who highlighted a number of projects for his constituency, including the Home Caregivers Program, as well as facilities for differently abled individuals. The House is to recommence at 8:30, so we'll take a break, a 30-minute break, and we'll return then for the continuation of the debate.